We are now recording.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Thank you.
Yeah, I was fiddling with that, but we are now recording.
All right, thank you. I will call the meeting to order. We do have all of our counselors present, and we have our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry, who is the host this evening, and Patricia Allen, our treasurer. I don't think there are any other, did I miss any other members of staff? Sounds like I
Is
did.
Dave there? Is Dave Cresser there?
Dave will be joining us when we get into the budget discussion. Pat, he had an event to attend firstly.
Okay, thank you. All right then. First question then is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest by counselors? Okay, let the record show that none was declared. And we started at about 6:37. All right then. Welcome the folks who have joined us for tonight's meeting. I see a number of names on the list here. Thank you for joining us. I would ask you all to please make sure that your microphones stay muted, and please leave your cameras turned off. There won't be an opportunity until perhaps the very end of the meeting for ratepayers to speak. So, but we encourage you to listen. And again, counselors, if you're not speaking, you may want to keep your microphones muted as well, just to reduce the background noise. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as circulated, please?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you very much. Seconded by?
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, last Thursday we had some issues because there were more than 100 people that were calling in and asking questions, but I had all kinds of messages from people who could not get in, and I don't know how many are on the call tonight, but I just think that if there are people that are on the call who were not able to ask a question last Thursday because they couldn't get in or whatever, mostly they couldn't get in, that we maybe give them, and I don't know whether there will be any, but give them go into the committee of the whole and give them the opportunity to ask a question, just because of the limitations that we placed on it last Thursday. And there may be one or two questions, and I think in an effort to be transparent and fair to people, that I would suggest we do that.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor Lamb. I'm not just going to consent to that. We do have a heavy agenda this evening, and I think it's hard to keep track of who spoke previously and didn't, and we don't want to get back into a situation where we simply don't have time in this meeting to have a lot of input from the public. So I did mention at the close of the last meeting that there wouldn't be public input in this meeting, and we don't have a limit on participants in our 44 in total, including council and staff, but I just don't feel that we have the time to allow the public to speak in this meeting. We got a fair bit of agenda to get through. And
But in
if we had
fairness,
finished at the last meeting, of course, the folks who didn't manage to get on the call would not have had an opportunity to speak. So we're really just picking up this topic as an overflow from the last meeting.
But-
We were in the session where only council was permitted to speak.
But in fairness, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I would like to amend the agenda. I don't think that's a unilateral decision that you can make. Can we not put that to council if they want to shut it down? I'm not talking, I'm just, people will say I wasn't able to get in. I have a question. I don't know that there won't be any. I just think it's the fair thing to do. And why can't we at least put that to a motion of council? I've asked for the amendment.
You may
guess
make an
you-
amendment if you wish. Go ahead.
Thank you. I make that amendment and I guess you have to go to the seconder, see if he agrees.
Is there a
I
second?
agree with that. I don't have a problem. I think if there's someone that needs to ask a question, they should be given the right to. I mean, I had quite a few calls myself from people that were saying, why the heck couldn't I get on? And can I talk at the next one? I mean, if there's a few people that want to ask a brief question and not take up, 2 hours or something on it, I don't think, I don't have a problem with that. I don't see the problem with that at all.
All right, fine. Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a comment. If we're reopening this up for speakers, we should have advertised it as such. It's not fair to the whole community to now all of a sudden inject a few new speakers into this. If people had questions or have questions, they can certainly contact their counselors or yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Gorman.
I have to agree. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have to agree with Councillor Lamb that there was an issue with the Zoom last week that we were unfortunately weren't aware that there is a cap on just regular Zoom calls, and you need to have a not technical person, but a special Zoom to accommodate more people. So I think if we could take 20 minutes or however long for anyone that do the honor system, everybody. If you spoke last time, we've already heard from you, but if there's people on the call that couldn't get through last time, then they ought to get to speak.
Okay, thank you. I guess I will ask the clerk to call the question then, please. On the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gordon Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes,
Councillor McEwen,
No,
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
No. All right, the motion is carried. I was planning to limit the time for this meeting because for this first part of the meeting, because you will understand that we have budget items to discuss as well. This is not supposed to be the main purpose of this meeting. So councilors, whatever, we'll see if there is anybody who didn't speak before who wants to speak, but they will be limited strictly to 2 minutes, and there will be and we will still have to close this meeting this portion of the meeting at a reasonable time so that we can finish our budget work. We can't go on till 11 o'clock. All right. The motion as amended is carried. We did have a closed session prior to the start of this meeting. There are no matters arising from the closed session. That brings us to the discussion on the Pool and Wellness Center, and I would like to, sorry, just looking for my roster here. What I would like to do is, if there are ratepayers on the call who did not get a chance to participate in the previous meeting and who wish to make a comment or ask a question now for 2 minutes, if you would go down on your screen to the reactions button and raise your hand. And if you're not on a screen, if you're on the telephone, if you would press *9, that will indicate to me that you want to speak, and we'll move you up onto the speakers list. So while that's going on, I am just going to bring up my timer again.
Mayor Conley, could I suggest that we do a motion to move into committee of the whole?
Yes, I guess that's correct. We do need to be, thank you. There wasn't, well, there was one, but it's for later on in the meeting, isn't it?
That's correct. We may need to do it twice.
Right. Okay, give me 1 second.
You might want to remind people who have dialed in how they come off mute to ask questions as well.
Okay, yes, I will get into the kind of instructions again. That's partly what I'm looking for here. I didn't think we were going to do this. All right, so I have the order paper for this. Can I get a motion to move into committee of the whole then, please?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
Thank you. Council will move into committee of the whole at 6:48. Okay, so is anyone opposed to that motion? All right, hearing no objection, we are in committee of the whole. And just a couple of preliminary remarks. Please adjust your comments to the chair and not to other councilors or members of the public. Please be respectful. I already mentioned keeping your microphone muted. If you are on a telephone, that is, you're participating audio only, not via the Zoom screen, you can use *6 on your phone to mute, mute and unmute your microphone, or you can use the mute button if you have a cell phone. And again, to indicate that you wish to speak, please put your, please go down and either use the reactions button that says raise hand. If you click on reactions and see below it says raise hand, and you're finished, you could kindly lower your hand. I will take you back off the list. And if you don't, again, if you're on the phone, the code to do that is *9. So without further preamble, I'm looking at my screen and I see there is a phone number, which is 416-997-6274. I would ask that person to unmute your phone, and please identify yourself so we know who you are. And when you're ready, you You may proceed with your comment or question.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. It's Garth Nash calling. Am I coming through now?
Yes, you are. Go ahead. Garth.
Thank you for taking the time to add questions for the public today, and thank you to you and council for the meetings and everybody for the tenor of the meeting last week. That was quite respectful, and appreciate the time to have discussion. So my question is quite brief. So I understand that the motion was made and supported last week to support the pool. I'm just curious if that motion had not gone ahead, where would the monies that are going to be spent on the pool have been otherwise spent? Thank you.
I honestly don't know, Garth, if we can answer that question. You'll appreciate that we are working on the 2021 budget, but there was really no intention that monies going towards the pool would go in 2021. So that there won't be any demand on the 2021 budget, regardless of the outcome. So in order to answer your question, we would have to sort of prejudge what the budget discussion might look like in perhaps even in 2022 or 2023, depending on when any contribution from us would have been required.
Okay, I understand that. So I presume that'll just be part of your deliberations on the extent to which to fund things and cap things, just making the balance between this want and some other needs.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, the next item, the next person I have on the list is another phone number, 905-684-7664. Whoever that is, if you would like to unmute yourself and proceed. I see that number is still muted. 905-684-7664. Okay, what we'll do is we'll move ahead to the next one in case that individual is having trouble getting ready. And next I see Kevin Concemetry. Kevin, do you want to? You ready
I'm
to go?
okay to go, or I see that individual's taken themselves off mute.
Okay. Who is it?
Okay, they're still not going.
No.
I'll go if that's okay. And you can come back.
Please go ahead. Yes, so we don't.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you want to get going here. I'll turn my my video on. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you so much for opening it back up to committee of the whole and taking input from everybody and questions. I appreciate the time limit from 3 minutes down to 2, I see, so I'll go fast. Really just a quick point of discussion, and then I have a question. The quick point of discussion that I want to make, I think it's been made, certainly in conversations that I have had with friends and neighbors and such, and I've seen it online, but I can appreciate Mr. Mayor and Councillor McEwen that you're not online very much or involved in social media, so I think it's worth stating. These debates have been very passionate and people's opinions very strong, which is always a good thing, and you're never going to get everybody to agree on everything. But I will say this, I'll speak for myself, and I know a number of other people. I won't pretend to speak for everybody that was, I'll call it the no vote. I am not against the pool. I have concerns about the current size and location and how much it'll get utilized because of those things. My concern, and the reason for saying no, is the agreement that's currently in place. I believe it's the joint services agreement. I'm just concerned for the financial obligations that we as a community could potentially be opening ourselves up to. I'm not going to go on about me or what I do for a living, but one of the major things that I do on a daily basis is negotiate contracts. And when I took a look at the joint services agreement, what struck me, I mean, there's a number of things in my mind that are missing. And one of them is sort of a protection on behalf of Whitestone ratepayers to protect us against potentially extreme financial obligations. Sometimes in contracts, these are known as a limitation of liability, a clause in the contract or the agreement. So my question is, and I was hoping to ask this to Councillor Gorham Matthews. So hopefully, oh, she's there. I think there's a big light in the background. Yeah, there you are. When we've already agreed to a commitment to this, I understand the financial commitment is at least written in the joint services agreement. Councillor Gorham Matthews and others, if they wish to comment afterwards, will you commit to the ratepayers of Whitestone Municipality to ensure there is a clause, such as a limitation of liability clause, that will protect us as ratepayers from undue financial obligation going forward for the next 10 years plus?
Okay, well, thank you. I will let Councillor Gorham Matthews make her comment since you've asked, but when we get to the debate section of the meeting, you will see a motion come up on the screen, and you will see that in terms of what is being proposed for council's discussion, there are very clear limits on our financial liability, no blank checks, as it were. So anyway, that very much appreciate your concern. It's I think you'll see that it is being addressed. But go ahead, Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Sure. So I was going to say something similar, that in the motion that Mayor Comrie is mentioning, we have placed limits on the amount that we would commit to. I'm not sure how that will be received by the other municipalities, or how that will be written out in the joint services agreement. How it will work if our agreement looks different from all the other municipalities, whether they will accept that or not. But for now, what is written that we're going to discuss tonight, we have placed limits on the amounts, whether the other people are in agreement with that or not. That's what we have done to protect ourselves so far.
Okay, thank you. You will also see, Kevin, that there is an item in that motion relative to the joint services agreement. That also
I appreciate that. It's something that we'll all be watching very closely. So thank you everyone. Councillor Gorham Matthews, Mayor Comrie, for your answer. Thank
you. So once again, I will ask if 905-684-7664 wishes to say anything.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I was muted. It's Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Can I respond to Kevin?
I suppose. Please be brief.
Yeah, I think we all should be brief. Absolutely, Kevin, I hear you. In the scenario that I would put forward, I would not be signing a joint services agreement, and I will hopefully get to the point tonight of making a motion that I think that the municipality and the ratepayers can live with. But I would not be joining any joint services agreement, particularly as it's written right now, which I think is very, very poor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had just a couple comments. Kevin, thanks for your information. As far as social media goes, I do follow social media. I've been labeled as not following it or being involved in it. I follow it quite closely, to be honest. I don't participate in it for council business. That's where I stand on social media. I appreciate all the work and all the background people do out there amongst themselves on social media. As for the agreement, unless there's a very strong conditional wording and language, I could not support the contract, as Councillor Lamb alluded to. It's not something we will be addressing in the immediate future, and I'm sure we're not the only municipality who has serious concerns about the actual contract. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I see that there is only one person left on the list, and it's that number that I've read out a couple of times. The line appears to be unmuted, but I don't hear anybody there. Is there anyone there at 905-684-7664 who wishes to speak? Okay, I think probably that hand may have got raised in error. Well, now I can see a bit of.
Mr. Mayor, Jack Hodson calling from North Meadow Cove Road. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can now. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry for the problems here. I'm trying to do this on a phone. I don't have a computer. But back in the mail out that you sent out to the public, and I'm going to quote, "Your input is important to us. Please send your comments or questions and let us know if you are for or against this project." Well, I listened the other night on Thursday, and the information that I received was 84% against this pool and wellness center and 16% for. If the information was so important to you, why did you disregard what the overwhelming number of people voted against it? Why are you going forth with it? Thank you very much. I'll sit back and wait for your answers. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think anyway, I'll try to give you a quick answer. Probably the best thing to do is to apologize for putting that item on the bottom of the list in the first place, because it did cause some people to think that somehow or other we were conducting a referendum on the subject. We don't govern by referendum in Whitestone. In fact, we don't do it in general in Ontario or Canada as a rule. That was not the intention. The intention was to have ratepayers review the material and respond with questions, concerns, etc. And many folks understood that and did that, and we tried our best to answer those questions. But the number of folks who were supportive or not supportive of this particular project is not the only factor in council's decisions, as people explained in the previous meeting, and as you'll hear again, I'm sure tonight. So it's the response of ratepayers is not, in fact, the only factor that councillors are taking into consideration. There are some other things that we have to look at. So. And that is typical, I would say, of every project that we undertake here. We typically do not go out and poll the public to see what they, to try to see who's supportive of something or not. We make our decisions based on what we believe as councilors are the best, are in the best interest of the municipality. So that's kind of the best answer I can give you. And I'm sorry if we caused you some confusion or caused you to think that we were in fact conducting a referendum, because that was never the council's intention. Okay, we have, there's nobody else on this list asking to speak. And so what I would like to do then is to move out of committee of the whole. And I'm sorry, I will have to once again find the right order paper for this, but reconvene into regular meeting. So I will just make a copy of that and we'll go ahead. So could I get a mover and seconder to reconvene into regular council meeting, please? At 7:07 p.m.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews, seconded by.
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
I'll second Councilor McEwen.
Okay, I got Councillor Lamb, thank you. Any discussion? Any opposition? Okay, thank you very much. We're back in our regular session. Okay. So at this point, Madam CIO, I wonder if we could have on the screen that particular, the page with the resolution on it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will have to, I don't have it handy here. I'd have to go look for it unless you have it.
I probably have it. Can I share my screen? I'll try it and see. Host disabled. Yeah, okay. Can you, if you allow me, I'll share my screen. Well, first I'll get the thing up on the screen. That's
Sarah, I think you should be able to share it now.
okay, thank you. All right, so now I have it. Let's just see if it will share. You can tell me if it is or it isn't. Where is it? Proposed motion. All right, sorry for the delay. I'm going to move it a little bit here and try and it almost fits. So my question is, can folks or Madam CA, perhaps you can tell me, can you in fact see this?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I can see most of it, like you said.
Quite clear, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So Is there a mover and seconder for this motion, please?
I also move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second for discussion.
okay, thank you, Councilor Graham Matthews. All right, that does get our at least provide a starting point for our discussion. I will let, as is our normal practice, I will let the mover of the motion speak to it first. Councilor
Mr.
McEwen.
Mayor, could you read the motion to people? Some
Oh,
are on
sorry, I
telephone.
would be happy. Yes, I would be happy to do that. Thanks for reminding me. I appreciate that. I will read it. Whereas council considers a public pool and wellness center to be an important amenity for the economic and social well-being of residents of West Perry Sound, including residents of Whitestone. And whereas council recognizes that Whitestone residents are the furthest distance from the proposed pool and wellness center and may therefore be less likely to use the facility than other West Perry Sound residents. And whereas the municipality of Whitestone has the smallest population and lowest tax base of the 7 West Perry Sound municipalities, therefore be it resolved that 1, the municipality of Whitestone agrees to contribute 6.1% of the difference between, on the one hand, the total construction cost of the facility, and 2, on the other hand, the sum of the Isip funding and any capital contribution through fundraising to a maximum total amount of $527,040 as a one-time contribution. And 2, the municipality of Whitestone further agrees to contribute annually towards any operating deficit of the facility a maximum amount of $18,316, commencing in the first year of the facility's operation and continuing for 10 years thereafter, with the maximum amount to be increased annually by the Consumer Price Index. And 3, that these commitments be contingent upon A, receipt of the full amount of the requested ISIP funding towards construction of the proposed West Perry Sound Pool and Wellness Center, and B, execution of an agreement acceptable to council between the municipality and the proposed joint municipal service board, which would address concerns about equitable representation of all participating municipalities in decision-making. And 3, a review of the operating model and projected operating costs for the facility by management consultants with expertise in such reviews to be completed prior to final design. So that is the motion as drafted. I will once again I will invite Councillor McEwen to speak to it, and if it is the wish of council, we can sever the 3 parts of the motion. In other words, we could deal with item number 1 first, and then deal with item number 2, and then item number 3, just so we're not sort of jumping back and forth with them all up in the air. But that'll be up to council to decide in a minute. Go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, since I moved it, I'd be pleased to say a few words here. I have a few notes. Council can, in my opinion, use care, knowledge, and vision to support conditionally, note the word conditionally, not non-conditionally, toward the Wellness Center, Pool Center facility to serve West Perry Sound for present and future generations. If I thought for a minute, I mean a minute, this participation would be damaging financially to Whitestone ratepayers and not needed, my vote would be to pause this project at least, or not support. A few costing bits of information that we have for consideration. The capital cost, which is certainly discussed and big concern amongst a lot of people. Whitestone's asked, what we've been asked for, 527,000, which is 6.1% of the total project deficit. That's after the grant money, if we receive that from governments. That financing over 20 years at 2.4% would mean Whitestone would have to pay $37,572 per year. Now this cost to the ratepayers, it's scaled down to a number of $3.26 per $100,000 of assessment. That's $3.26 per $100,000 of assessment. Now, if you're a year-round resident with an average assessment, which is average in 2020, which was $153,000, your actual cost per year would be $4.98. Second to that, and very important, seasonal residents, the average in 2020, as assessed in 2020, was $275,000. The capital cost per year for a seasonal resident, this works out to $7.66. So you can see the numbers are not staggering high if we go over 20 years. If we went 10 years or 15 years, you may recall Mayor Comrie had his Q&A out to the municipality and ratepayers. He had a 15-year comparison. So the numbers were somewhat proportional. A bit more because of a shorter term debenture he had at 15 years. Now the second part of the costing, which is very significant, and I believe the one that more and more people were concerned about, and we heard from independent people and a lot of people along the way, is the operating costs. As provided by the Wellness Center Pool Center Committee, steering committee, Whitestone's operating costs at 6.1% of operating costs. Our share was 18,316 as council, or as Mayor Comrie has in his resolution. $18,316 annually represents 0.3 of 1% of our budget. Now, money is not money for operating costs is not debenturable, and we'll have to look into operating costs, capital adjustments year by year to support this $18,316. So in any given year, that's what we're looking at. Plus, as you'll note in the resolution, the suggestion was increased only by consumer price index. So a clause there to protect us, and it would have to be legally worded. So just a couple other comments. This cultural center, in collaboration with neighbors in West Prairie Sound communities, is very huge. It's very huge in a lot of ways, bringing our outlying small community into a regional connection with the other municipalities. Your council has spoken to support conditionally, pending funding, and protection against cost increases. This project, in my mind, will require verification of costing formulas, the formulas I just mentioned there. Contract approval by Whitestone Council. This won't come until later. Other municipalities have to weigh in big time. All communities, all participants, the 7 municipalities must be part of this solution and equation, or it doesn't work. So the costing is very significant. And of course, verification and receipt of the grant money from the provincial federal governments, that's very, very important. Without that money, this project just will not go anywhere. So having said that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Does the seconder wish to speak at this point, or?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of this agreement that we've written up here, I like that we've capped the amount that we can be expected to pay. My only question is, we haven't discussed reserves, and there seems to be some confusion that reserves are something separate from the operating deficit that we would be paying into. And, you know, I've heard different scenarios mentioned. So I'm just wondering if you can confirm, because when I had written suggestion for this motion, I had included limiting the amount that we would be responsible for contributing to reserves. So I'm wondering if you can speak to why we haven't mentioned reserves in here, because I think that's a kind of a loophole that's been left open. We've got the total construction costs, we've got the operating deficit, but we're not mentioning the reserves at this point.
Okay, thank you. It sounded like a question, so I will just make a comment quickly, and then if somebody else wants to, they can. First of all, what are reserves? Reserves are monies that are set aside out of revenues. So, you know, whatever revenues the pool would have from, you know, from an operating point of view, those monies would be set aside to fund the cost of major upgrades that are required. So, you know, there's equipment in a facility like this that has to be replaced every so many years, and you don't wait till a whole bunch of things have to be replaced, and you get a large one-time expense against your operating budget. You put some money away for the future. So but that money comes out of operating funds. It is an operating budget consideration. It just gets saved away in a special account for when it's needed. There is the operators of the pool would clearly have to do this. Once again, there has been a suggestion that some of the funds that would be generated through fundraising might go to establish reserves for that kind of thing, depending on, you know, the wishes of person donating the money. But you can get donations for both capital and operating costs. But that's certainly something that would end up having to be absorbed as a cost by the owners of the facility. It is, however, not, in our particular case, we are only committing to do two things. At least this motion is only committing to do two things. One is to make a contribution towards the capital cost, and the other is to make a contribution towards the annual operating expenses, or the annual operating deficit for that matter, which is the shortfall of revenue versus expenses. Those reserves that Councillor Coram Matthews is asking about would in fact show up in the expenses every year, because the managers of the facility would determine that a certain amount of money was required to be put aside in those costs each year, and those costs would be part of the annual operating cost. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, now, I think in the joint services agreement, and again, I've heard, you know, numbers sort of thrown around here, but, you know, I think the equipment and pool, et cetera, the physical equipment, et cetera, is something like 17 million of the 32 million. And one would tell you that 1 to 2% of that value should go away each year towards these so-called reserves. And that could be as high at 2% of as $340,000 a year. I understand in the joint services agreement that others have told me that whoever runs this will simply, bill every 6 months the share of the reserve. Now, 6% of 340, kind of do the math. That's 20 grand a year for our share towards, replacement of the pool, if you will, 20 years out or whatever. And so that's my understanding of it. And so it's not in the 300,000 that's been projected. And that's just the one element, of course, that Mr. Plum and others were trying to point out. That's not in there. Of course, the membership levels and also the other factors. That's what was going to lead to this massive increase in the deficit. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment, which is I would have to say perfectly valid from my point of view. My response would be twofold. First of all, what is proposed here does not include a contribution to reserves specifically, so the municipality is at least in terms of what we're discussing at the moment, municipality is not committing to accept bills such as you suggest for annual bills for contribution towards reserves. I think the other thing that is also clear is that we are not suggesting that the current joint municipal services board agreement, the one that has been circulated, is ready for execution. There are a number of things that various folks have objected to in that agreement, and I guess what we're suggesting for purposes of tonight's discussion is that that's why condition B is there, is that we would nothing would happen until we get an agreement that is acceptable to the council, between the municipality and the council, is acceptable to council. In order for this to go ahead. So there are issues there that need to be resolved. They are being discussed to some extent, but we're not ready to do that at this point. That's something that can be dealt with in the future, and so that's why that condition is there. But you're right, there isn't. I think there's some clarification required as to what should be there in reserves, and that is kind of covered under item number C as well, which goes really to the objection that has been raised about the operating model and the associated operating costs, which may very well be understated, and I think, at least, I'll just speak for myself, I think that all of the proponents of this project should want to get that resolved.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McEwen, are you going round table, or can I ask one now? I don't want to step out of order.
Well, sure. I mean, I guess the only person who hasn't spoken is Councillor Woods.
Well, just hold a second. I haven't said my remark.
Well, all right. Okay, so you asked the question. I don't know what Councillor McEwen.
They weren't my remarks. So I was just helping to answer a question.
Okay, so I just want to sort of keep make sure everybody who wants to speak has a turn before we go.
Well, I'd like a turn, please.
Can I finish with the reserves for one moment?
Oh, I'm sorry. If we
Sure,
didn't
okay.
finish please go ahead, Councillor Gorman Matthews.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, can we add, just so that it's in writing so it doesn't get missed, under 3B, where we say which would address concerns about equitable representation of all municipalities in decision making, and put about the reserves, how we would contribute to reserves under that, just so it doesn't get missed, because I think that's an important piece to make sure that it's very clear what we're going to agree to contribute towards that as well.
Yeah, sure. I would, if it were up to me, I would put it under C, not under B, but
either one of them, as long as it's included in writing.
yeah, we could certainly amend that. I will, while somebody else is speaking, I'll see if I can locate a paper copy, and yes, I do. And I'll make a note of that. Thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to raise at this point?
I'm good for now.
All right. Well, all right. Who's next? Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, thank you. So what we're all saying here, and I'll put it in simple words, is that this is a stinky agreement. And it's the agreement that the mayor and the CAO who sat on these committees in Perry Sound brought back to us. You know, to say it's no good and it's full of holes and all that kind of stuff, I know people tried hard, but I have no, you know, what assurances, I guess, the taxpayers have that if whatever comes back isn't going to be much better, because obviously Perry Sound and McDougall and Seguin are the big people in the game here, and not necessarily the 5 other smaller communities. I might say, with respect to the current proposal, which I will not support, that's in front of you, there's no escape clause to begin with. And we don't talk about escape clauses. We sort of, you know, get into this forever. Everyone knows that if we sign an agreement such as this, you can't get out unless, you know, all 11 other votes want you out, and that's not likely to ever happen. Secondly, I don't see anywhere in there where this is conditional on all the other municipalities participating. And I think that needs to be put in there. If 2 of them decide, who haven't decided yet, they're not going to participate, I think that changes this a great deal. So anyway, my short comments are this. The third thing is, I'm not sure the numbers, you know, with all due respect, that Councillor McEwen put out are necessarily right. And I don't know any seasonal person who probably has waterfront that feels that their place is worth $275,000 in today's world. It would have to be a shed and not much else. But anyway, $18,300 a year is not a 0.3% tax increase. $25,000 roughly is a 1% tax increase in Whitestone. So do the math. And under any circumstances, you know, this is going to cost you, even if we put caps on it, 2 or 3% of your tax dollars. I don't know what it comes out to per 100,000 or whatever, but it's not cheap. And most people have sort of, come to the conclusion it's going to cost them $100 or $200 or $150 or whatever. But that aside, Mr. Mayor, when you ran for council 2 years ago, I was looking today at what you wrote, and your number one, you said, my priority, number one, is to have an open, transparent, democratic government.
Excuse me, Councillor Lamb, I'm going to have to interrupt you. We're talking about the pool. We are not electioneering. There's no election going on.
Just hold on, sir.
No.
I get my time to speak of what I want. Please don't interrupt me. Don't tell me what I can say and what I can't say.
In my opening remarks, I said that we were not going to be making personal remarks about individuals. I will rule you out of order
Oh, for
if
the
you
love of-
continue to do that. Move on to something about the pool, please.
Oh,
You may not use this as a platform to attack individuals.
I'm using it as a platform to stand up for the majority of our taxpayers. If you don't want it, I guess I'm not going to be kicked off the call because you want to run this. But anyway, I'll get on to the pool. Okay, I think it's completely inappropriate. But anyway, the Whitestone Recreation Committee's total annual budget, for all the programming in Whitestone, which I have supported throughout the years, is approximately $20,000 per year. Given this, it seems unbelievable to me that we would even talk about sending $527,000 up front if this pool is to be built, and nearly $20,000 annually in deficit, even if it's capped. That's what our budget is in Whitestone. This, it's incredible to me. And, fellow councillors, as I said last week, any decision that you make should not be, in my opinion, your own personal decision. For example, even though I'm against our involvement in the pool, really, I decided after the ratepayers had spoken. And I can honestly tell you that if 84% of our ratepayers were for the pool, even though I'm against it, I would vote for the pool because that's my responsibility, in my opinion, to the ratepayers. You don't ask them, and then you don't ask, and then say, thank you for your input, but I'm not going to follow it, in my opinion. Don't ask. Anyway, I feel that this whole situation is it's obviously a great weight, I think, on Councillor Gordon Matthews, and I think everyone sort of, feels for you in this situation, because I think the four of us are pretty well dug in on our positions. But I ask, Beth, that you please listen to your friends and the electorate. I put to all of us to please defeat this motion. If we do, I'll put a motion on the table that I think is responsible and acceptable to the ratepayers of Whitestone. I think we can all work together to satisfy our people. Please listen. We need to heal and seek compromise and not shove this down people's throat. Last week, we kicked them in the gut by telling them we are going to give to this pool. This year, I don't want to punch them in the face with giving everything that the ask is from Parry Sound, and feel that we've done a good job by simply capping it, because I don't think we are doing a good job to our citizens. Thank you very much. Please listen.
Okay, thank you. Who wishes to go next? Councillor McEwen, I see, has his hand up. Go ahead.
I will, unless Councillor Woods wants to kick in. A few things to say. He hasn't had a word in yet, but I will.
I can wait for you, Joe. Go ahead.
Okay, firstly, bringing Councillor Gordon Matthew into it is kind of a nasty kick. She can make her own decisions. I have every confidence in her intelligence and ability. Just a couple things to check what Councillor Lamb commented on. The operating considerations in dollars and percentages I received were current today with staff. I will inform him. 0.678 is the percentage of the operating cost ask. That's a 0.678% of 1% on our budget. The 84% thing, people just can't seem to get away from that. The comments are my most important aspect of what we went out to people for, but it's 84% by Councillor Lamb. It's 65% by my count tabulation. Yesterday, I'll have you know, and it's 65% of 255 respondents that are in that book, and that's front to back. So anyway, I verified those numbers. Mr. Mayor, if I could, I have a couple of questions on the resolution. One is, could you Could you comment on the 10 years under the operating, that's number 2, the amount for operating and what the 10 years mean? And I guess the second one, I thought of that during listening to other people speak, but you know, we have a catchment area in West Prairie Sound of 40,000 people, 40,000 plus. And I know that pretty well because I was with Hydro One and I was in charge of meter reading and that kind of thing at one point in time. And we had 17,000, 18,000 permanents. We had 22 to 23,000 seasonals. So there's a very, very significant, large, broad base of people along Georgian Bay, this end of Lake Joseph, Wawashkesh, it just goes on and on, out Carling, McDougall, McKellar. I'd like you to comment, Mr. Mayor, if you would, on any discussion you may have had, and I meant to ask you this before, but with respect to fundraising and money that can be floated through fundraising in various means from a vast area which encompasses Georgian Bay and all the inland lakes and all the clientele we're dealing with. Fundraising will, in essence, if they get on track with it, could cut our actual $527,000. It could cut that down significantly. Maybe it'll cut it down by 50%. Maybe it'll cut it down 10%. I don't know. Could you comment on that, Mr. Mayor? So that's the first one was in number 2 there, the 10-year number that we're continuing operations around, and then the other is on the fundraising. Thank you.
Okay, sure, thank you. The subject of fundraising came up, has come up a few times, and several of the heads of council in West Prairie Sound had raised it earlier on in the project, and finally, when the towards the after the Isip application had been submitted and so on, there was a motion passed by WCPC that that there would be a fundraising committee set up and tasked to get to work. Now, the decision that was made was that they would wait until the funding was announced, because it's difficult to entice people to raise money for something that might not happen, that is heavily dependent on government funding. So that hasn't started yet, but there has been some discussion about it, and I keep hearing encouragement from some of the heads to get organized for that, to be ready. I think it's always difficult in the middle of a pandemic to predict how these things are going to go, but I think it's reasonable to expect that a good chunk, maybe 50% of the the difference, the capital shortfall, if you will, after the government grant is received, could be raised by fundraising. And if that happens, as Councillor McEwen has suggested, that would reduce that $527,000 number, because we would not be asked for that, and that's we would be asked for whatever portion of it was still required after fundraising had taken place, and so that's that of course can't be determined today, which is why we're simply talking about an upset limit. But as to the 10 years, where did that come from? Well, that is one of the things that did come out of the shared services agreement. The thought was that what in the WCPC is that what we wanted was for municipalities to make a commitment that is long enough to ensure that the facility gets up and running, and that we have some experience as to how it's being used and so on, and what the what the needs of it are on an ongoing basis. So, I mean, 10 years is an arbitrary number, of course, but the thinking was that after 10 years, the matter would probably go back to the, to the various municipalities to determine what they wanted to do on a go-forward basis. And that would be a sufficient time in order for the operation to be stable, and there would be of course very good knowledge about usage, how many people from each municipality were using it and that sort of thing by that point in time, and also what the operating cost needs of it actually were. So it's just an arbitrary number, but that's where it came out of. It was the term of the proposed shared services agreement was 10 years, and so that's kind of the commitment that people have been asked, that municipalities have been asked to make.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might just add a couple of comments, because you and Councillor McEwen having a back and forth here, which is fine. The committee and everyone, properly excluded seasonals for good reason. They probably will never use a pool, and therefore they're not going to take out a membership, or very few of them are. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of make that point. The second thing is, when it comes to fundraising, I kind of think if its and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Not a single penny of fundraising or reserves has ever been put away for this pool by any municipality, not a single penny. But in our case, in Whitestone, we fundraised $100,000 for the new library. And guess what? The good news is the library's open for business tomorrow, everyone. So that's really good news. But we fundraised in advance of getting everything in Whitestone, but none of that. We're all going to do it in the future. We're all, it might be half, it might be all. You won't have to. Wait till it comes out a few years from now and you see what it's really costing this area. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wood, do you have?
I was just about to ask Mr. Mayor if I could say something.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the first point about the 6.1%, the difference between the total construction cost of the facility and the Isip funding. Okay, just for quick math for everybody, our expansion that we did on the library cost over $700 a square foot by the time we were done for basic stick frame construction. So just to take that $700 number, 50,000 square foot facility, that's $35 million. So you're already short at that $32 million mark. If anybody believes that construction costs aren't going to go up a lot just for materials before this is finished, if it gets done, you're not thinking of the reality. I mean, the cost of materials go up every single day, and you can ask any of our local builders here how much their costs have went up. So the difference, what would happen if it came back at, say, $35 million to finish the project? Would we then, that extra $3 million basically that would have been added to it, so we have to pay the 6.1% of that as well?
Okay, the short answer to that question is no, we would not, under what is being proposed here. We would not. Okay. I've made this comment previously, but I'll make it again. There was a there was a I would say a tacit understanding within the WCPC that the 32 million was to be considered as again an upset limit for the cost of cost of design and construction and various other things. And keep in mind that there were a lot of things that were included in there. They're not some of which are not estimated on a square foot basis. Okay, there's servicing costs and various other things that one could argue they were put in there to maximize the amount of the available grant that could be obtained from the government. So the idea is that if at the end of the day it turns out that in order to build what everybody wants is 40 million instead of 32 million or something, then, or I believe the will of the group as a whole is to say, we're going to scale back what we're doing or stage it or something, like, I mean, there isn't currently a plan B on the table, as I think you probably know. But, there have been some discussions around, well, would it be possible to build the aquatic facility separately from the other piece of it and join it at a later date to the rest of the complex, given that from a construction point of view, their requirements are fairly different, as you can perhaps appreciate. A pool is a special thing to construct. So you can't make a comparison between this project and something like the library.
Well, no, I can when it comes to construction values, Mr. Mayor, and I can speak to that better than anybody on council. That I can guarantee. There's a huge difference when it comes to stick frame construction as opposed to ICI sector construction, which I'm a CFQ certified carpenter, 20 years in the Carpenters Union, building projects just like that. There's a completely different set of rules. There's a completely different set of tradesmen, and there is a completely different price value to all the materials when it comes to that construction.
No argument. But my point is that you can't assume that the cost of the thing is grossly understated. The Shared Services Corporation is going to have to work with the revenue that it has, and that's I think that's the simplest way of putting it. I don't believe that any of the other municipalities are prepared to go back and say, oh, well, sorry that you underestimated. And keep in mind, this costing was done in November of 2019. There's been a long time lag, not because of anybody's fault. It's there was a deadline to submit the Isip application. They had to come up with the very best costs that they could in order to complete that and get it in. And almost immediately after, we ended up in a pandemic, and the government put the whole thing on the back burner, which is where it is today. It's still being evaluated, and the assumption at the time was that there would be announcement in the spring of 2020 of funding, and people would get on with things. So a lot's changed since then. Everybody understands that, but that doesn't tell me that the project can't be built or can't go ahead. There's ways around these things.
Okay. When it comes to the $18,316 for the operating expenses, you've said, and I've heard Councillor McEwen say it, a lot of people have been talking about it online. Oh, well, don't worry, we'll just put a cap on it. Maybe you can tell me, because I've been asking some other people some questions on this, and I've got a couple of different answers. Now, you're the representative on the pool committee. If we put that cap on it, if every other municipality put a cap on it, and say it came back where, it's not $300,000 that we all have to come up with between us, it actually is $1.5 million or 2 million, or say it was $1 million. Even though we put that cap on it, could we not be forced to pay the difference if we sign into this agreement? Because we all sign in for the funding. We agreed to take the money from the federal government through the provincial government to build this. We can't go back to them ever for operating expenses. We have to do it on our own. Would Perry Sound or Perry Sound and Seguin not be able to lobby a minister and say, look, we all went in on this together? everybody calculates, we're short this much money, force them to pay it, and then we have to pay it regardless of the caps that we think we can put on? Like, have we gotten a legal opinion on anything like that yet?
Well, under the no, because under the current situation, we're not, what is in front of you, we are not proposing to sign the agreement that is there, and we would not. I don't even remember what it said about this, but if the council says this is all you're going to get from us, and that's all that the operators of the facility are going to get from us. There is no, as long as we remain a lower tier municipality, then council decides what contracts it wants to enter into for various things. There's no, the Shared Services Corporation does not have levy powers. They can't turn around and say, oh, well, we don't care what you agreed to. We're going to levy costs to you. So we're not at risk by passing this motion. And we wouldn't be at risk unless we signed an agreement that said that we would be subject to levies, which I would not be advocating, certainly.
Mr. Mayor.
You say what? You said you asked another question, which is what if everybody does that? Well,
Mr. Mayor, if I might just add, that's why Kevin Casimetry, I think, asked the question to insert at some point a limited liability clause. That was his very point. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I agree. I absolutely agree. I don't see us signing up for some, right now we have a choice, and why we would forfeit that choice voluntarily, I don't know. That's, I'm not going to speculate on why why the 3 municipalities that have already signed up to this did not raise this, but others are raising it, and I think that's what item C in the contingencies, item 3C is designed to address, which is to say, let's find out some more information about these things, so that we, not because it makes a difference to what Whitestone could be liable for in the future, but because everybody should be interested in knowing whether, in fact, it's what is the projected operating deficit, and how would that inform decisions about what kind of programming is going to be offered, and maybe even some aspects of the detailed design of it. Anyway, that's I understand absolutely folks concerned that somehow or other there's what I refer to as a blank check in here, that somehow or other, once we do something, then we're going to be stuck with all sorts of hidden costs. I can assure you that I have no intention of being a party to such a thing. That is not what is being what I'm suggesting, and I don't think we're in. I do not believe that we as a municipality are in a position to do that, to make those kinds of commitments. Some of the other municipalities, maybe. Well, they have bigger assessment basis than ours. They have, wealthier ratepayers, whatever. I don't know, but not us. And so we have to protect ourselves, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Mr. Mayor, as far as any work that would be done or need to be done on the facility, we're talking about, 10 years and 20 years, we're going to take a loan to pay this money back. In that amount of time, this facility will require a lot of maintenance work that's not going to be cheap. This I know for a fact. Even, the hardwood floor, you're going to recoat a hardwood gym floor every 3 to 5 years. There's a lifespan on windows. There's a lifespan on, heating and air conditioning equipment. There's a lifespan on all the pool equipment. if we sign the services agreement and we don't just give them a one-time donation fee and say we don't want a seat at that table, to me, that's going to leave us in a position where we're going to end up having to pay a heck of a lot more money than anybody realizes. I don't understand why. I mean, the last meeting, as Councillor, Lamb said, I'll paraphrase, we kicked them in the groin, and this week we're going to punch them in the mouth. To me, the most responsible thing that we should all be doing, I mean, the decision was made that we're going to contribute. Okay. I want to see us minimize the collateral damage as far as how much money we're actually going to give them. I think 527 is completely out of hand. And the 18,000 a year, I could argue that. But I would not want anything else to do with signing an agreement with Perry Sound or anybody else. I wouldn't want to sit at that table. I would not want to be part of any future expansion. And I think if we were even considering anything like that, we're doing a great injustice to the majority of our ratepayers here. I mean, all of this money that we're talking about sending them, this could go a heck of a long way in helping Whitestone maintain Whitestone. Not just making Whitestone better, just maintaining it. We're considering spending $527,000 up front to give them. That goes a long way in gravel for our gravel roads. I mean, to me, it's not an ask. They've been telling us this is what we need to put in. And, Councillor McEwen, I appreciate where you're coming from and I respect you, but you keep saying that it's an ask. And this is presented not as an ask. This is a tell. We're being told we need to put this in order to be part of the group. To me, it's crazy. We shouldn't be considering this amount of money. None of us. It's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money. And the majority of people who responded, and the majority that I have spoke to, have said they didn't want anything to do with it. We've all went against that. Well, Councillor Lamb and I didn't, but the majority did. To go further and just offer this money, I think it would be completely reckless and completely ignorant to the taxpayers of this community, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, I don't want to prolong the discussion. I have tried to answer your concern to the best of my ability about the cost overrun. I can assure you that so far as I'm concerned, the municipality will be protected against cost overruns, whether they're on capital or this municipality will be. I won't be signing any agreements. I'm the person who ends up having to sign them probably with the CAO. I won't be signing any agreements unless, first of all, they will be vetted, whatever agreement would come forward. And I'm sure it will be somewhat different from the one that you may have seen because of other issues that people have raised with it. But council will have an opportunity to review it. And if I see any way that it can come back to haunt us down the road in terms of additional unforeseen obligations, I won't be signing it. I think it would be irresponsible for us to do that.
Mr. Mayor?
As far as as far as I thought where our discussion might sort of take us was what is a fair contribution since we did agree to make a contribution. But this is this is a good, I think this is a starting point for discussion. I think the appropriate starting point is for the discussion is what we were in fact asked to contribute. My own view is that it is a manageable ask for Whitestone. But if folks want to suggest other things, we can consider them, I suppose. At some point in time, I would simply say that from my perspective, in order for us to be considered a participant in this, whatever contribution we make has to be material and not inconsequential. But there may be other ways, and I have no idea what. Anyway, I won't go on. I just want you to understand we're trying to get questions and concerns out of the way, and I think that's great. I'm perfectly happy with that. But we need
Mr. Mayor?
we need to try and converge on a reasonable contribution to this somehow.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Councillor Lamb. Last week, we decided we were going to contribute to the pool, and that decision did not surprise me. And we've decided that what you've brought, other than the caps, is basically the full ask. I would hope that we would put that to a vote, and I would really hope that we just turn that full ask down. And as I said earlier, I would be prepared to make a motion, which is, I think, this one needs to be either affirmed or discarded, and I will make a motion somewhat based on the hybrid model that's been put out into the community. I don't think we can deal with multiple motions, right? If we turn this one down, that means that we're still going to contribute. It's just that we're going to have a different set of numbers, and I think that's how we should proceed. In my opinion, I think it's the right way to go. And if, by the way, we vote on this motion, I don't want you to forget my comments that there's nothing, as far as I know, about conditional on other municipalities also all participating. And secondly, that there's no escape clause, or there's no mention of negotiating a suitable escape clause of some sort. But anyway, those are my comments. But I think we need to have a vote on this, and I'm hopeful that hopefully it'll be turned down, and then we can start talking about other alternatives. I think that's fair to the community. And I think it will ultimately be accepted by a lot of people. So thank you.
Okay, well,
Mr. Mayor? Okay, go ahead, Bill.
There is, you have an opportunity to amend this motion if you wish. I think the motion has to, is structured in this way because of the way that the ask is structured, and because of the way that the other municipalities, well, any municipality that is going to be a part of this project has to contribute to it. So that's why there is a part which says we will contribute something to the capital costs. I mean, if you think that the amount is excessive, then we could have a discussion around what the amount should be. If the upset amount, if you think that the amount of the contribution towards the annual operating deficit is excessive, you could we could have that discussion. If you think that there needs to be another condition that all the other municipalities agree to support the project financially or whatever, you could make that as, you could suggest that as an amendment, and if it passes, it can get added on. But we need to converge to something, and since the motion is on the floor, our opportunities are to amend it, are to pass it, or either as it is or amend it as amended, or to defeat it. That's.
Are we able?
You're right as to procedure.
Mr. Mayor, could I have a word?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
I agree with Councillor Lamb on the participation part for sure. We need all 7 communities, and that could be an easy add-on. I don't know. I don't think we have to vote that one in. it goes without saying, ultimately. The 6.1%, I disagree with going with a hybrid. I think the 6.1% was, in my opinion, and I've looked at this for hours and hours, it's 6.1%, which includes benefits to us being far away, small population, small assessment, goes on, compared to other local or closer participants. McKellar, they're going back for a hopeful revision, and maybe it'll benefit us. I don't know, but they're up in the 9% range because they're so close to Perry Sound. So other people have similar kinds of issues, but I can still stand for this amendment, or pardon me, this motion as it sits, with a couple of minor changes to it only. And one would be the total participation of all communities.
Mr. Mayor, am I able to put a second motion on the table so we can debate both motions? Is that?
No, procedurally, unfortunately, we cannot, well, not unfortunately, but procedurally, that becomes a nightmare. We have to dispose of the motion that is on the floor.
Well, let's dispose of it then. That was a good word.
So you don't want to try and amend it, eh?
Well, I told you on the current motion what I wanted in. Councillor McEwen has agreed that all other municipalities are included.
Okay,
I would
that's
also
3D, okay?
Okay, I'd also like that we successfully negotiate an escape clause. But don't get me wrong, by putting these things in, I'm only putting them in under the unfortunate situation that this gets passed, and then I won't be able to put them in, but I'm still not going to vote for this in its current form. I think $527,000 is wrong. I think $18,000 a year is wrong. I don't agree with the 6.1% formula when Perry Sound pays 25% and gets probably 65% of the benefit. And all the things we said, we're paying for the water and sewer in the North End, etc. It's not right, okay? So no, I don't agree with that. I don't think we should join the joint services agreement. I think it's a terrible agreement. I think whatever we give should be a contribution, and just that. I don't want a seat, as Councillor Wood said, I don't want a seat on a board that I can never get out of. I don't want a seat on a board that if they put a splash pad in and all decide that they want to go forward and charge us, that they can. And I sure as heck don't want to negotiate for a year with bigger people than us and lose out. I don't think that this municipality should. Well, this has to come significantly down to make it even palatable for our community. So I hope that we don't pass it and get on to talking about a hybrid model that we can all hopefully work with and live with and cure any ills in this community. That's what I want, not giving them the whole enchilada and making somehow saying to the citizens, "You happy now? We capped it." They told us they didn't want it based on what we gave them. They didn't think it was going to be anything more, and it's 84%. It is not 250 emails or 240 emails. Many of them had two people. Come on, it's 378 people, and I'll go to my grave attesting that.
Okay, let's.
Thank you.
Let's not keep revisiting that subject.
Well, I only revisit it because it's questioned. I don't want people to believe it.
Mr. Mayor, who gets the final word on this?
Well, you do as the mover. I just wanted to. I was going to encourage rather than get rid of this and start from scratch and have us try to craft a motion on the floor. You realize we're at 8:15. We will be at midnight still trying to. If we try to craft a motion on the floor, we'll be here at midnight. Well,
I have a
motion. Because but you should have presented it for us in the beginning. We need to get it up on the screen.
You presented the one you wanted.
Somebody had to do some work to produce one, right?
So did I. I've got one here. I worked too.
Well, all right, but in this particular case, you're saying the $527,040 is too high. What is your reasonable? Why don't you propose to amend it to some other number, and we'll test that?
Well, I know it can't go on as a motion. Let me tell you what I would do. The motion that I would have is something like that we give $50,000 to the Perry Sound Pool and Wellness Center towards the capital, and we give $5,000 annually for 5 years as a donation towards the operating deficits, and that the annual contribution would be subject to yearly audited financial statements and will be reviewed in 5 years after the opening, that these funds will all be donations and we will not sign the joint services agreement, that this is conditional on the Isip funding being received, and that these monies would be conditional on all 7 municipalities financially contributing to the project. That's a simple motion. I know I can't introduce it, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So could we talk about 50,000? Could we talk about 5,000? Absolutely. You know, I think we need to look at, you know, that sort of vein. And I don't care if it takes us all night. This is a pretty important discussion for us as a council.
Okay.
And so why don't we vote on the current proposal?
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Gore Matthews.
I think 50,000 isn't enough in terms of the donation towards the capital. If I know this isn't anything official, but I know McKellar has been looking at different funding formulas and trying to find something that's a little more fair in terms for Whitestone and McKellar, given our distance from Perry Sound and our lower tax rate and tax base. So some of those figures that they've come up with, and I believe that they're being presented by their CAO to the board or the committee or whatever it's called. And they're suggesting that our percentage should be more like 3%. So if we were to cut the 527 in half, I think that would go a long way to making everyone feel a little more comfortable. The 527 and half kind of aligns with what I suggested last night in terms of what I think people would find a comfortable capital contribution. And it would also allow us to fund it through 10 years rather than 20 years, which would be our commitment that we're saying in number 2. I just think people could live a little better if we did the 3% instead of the 6%, and I think it's fair. We're still contributing a significant amount of money from Whitestone, but we're not giving anyone a undue hardship as well. I don't know if that's anything anybody else is interested in, or do we wait and see if McKellar's suggestions go through with the committee and we've committed to 6% and then they lower the rate and we've already passed this motion? Maybe we wait, but I think if we cut the 527 in half, it would make everyone feel a lot better.
What, if I may ask, Mr.
Mayor, can I speak, please? Could we share the airtime a little bit? Thank you.
Well, you know, I said what I said, and Councillor Beth Matthews answered me. I had a question of her because she had the floor. If it was, you know, $250,000 and it was the annual contribution was less than 18,000, I said 5. If it was 10 a year for 5 years, that it could be reviewed depending at that point on the membership and that sort of thing. If it was 10 instead of 18, would that be okay? And do you agree that the contribution should be a contribution and not a signed services agreement that we don't control our own future, just as I had said? Isn't that a palatable solution for the community, don't you think?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I think people would be much more comfortable with 250. I'm okay with the operating cost, the 18. When you think about it, I know you compared it to what Whitestone's already paying to our rec committee, but our rec committee doesn't offer programs every day. When you look at the why, you're looking at the ability to really go every day, and there's something for you to do there. Our rec committee focuses a lot on children's programs, which is great, but there isn't a lot for adults to do in this community or to do as a family. So in terms of organized activity, I know there's lots of things to do, but I would be comfortable leaving the 18. And my feelings wouldn't be hurt if we didn't sign a joint municipal service board agreement.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak?
Yes, I think we're making some progress. We are going to have to get some amendments on the floor, but you go ahead, Councillor McEwen. And
as I mentioned early on in the game here, the dollars per person for residents is so little, yet we're going to basically opt ourselves out of our request or ask participation in this serious project. If we feel, and if councillors feel that $4.95 or $5 per family on average to support this pool center is too high, then I guess I'm totally out to lunch. If the seasonal one, which incidentally $2.75 is the average, and if you go around with your GPSing and do some geographical stuff around our lake system, you'll find there's a lot of $200,000 or $300,000 properties there so far, and the average is $2.75. I know Councillor Lamb kind of disputed that. We've got $1 million properties, we've got $150,000 properties. So anyway, the cost per year is $7.66 on average for a seasonal. And for the life of me can't see us not supporting the 6.1% ask at those kind of cost payouts for the capital on this project. If we're going to start minimizing the whole thing and getting back into the discussion of this, that, and the other thing, without looking at the full analysis of it, which is the benefits, if people were listening the other night on the 25th, there were a lot of benefits and there were a lot of happy people. And I hate to say this, but many people have not responded because they feel threatened, not so much threatened, but they don't want to be intimidated or go at loggerheads and be at odds with their neighbors. There's a whole lot of different dynamics that flow in behind this thing that haven't come out, and I don't think they should all come out. But if we change these numbers for the benefit of satisfying a few people, I'm very, very disappointed. I think what we got here is a good chance to be collaborative with the neighboring municipalities. And you know, when this comes down and out, maybe we won't even get the darn grant money. This has all been a pit neighbor against neighbor kind of thing, seasonal against year-rounder, which is just totally ridiculous. And in the final run here, I really do hope that we can do this thing justice based on what I perceive to be a good, viable program. The programming itself, comparing it to something like our rec committee or something in Dudchurch, my God, I've done research on the programming and the things that different Ys supply around this province. And it's just totally astronomical, from seniors to daycares to swimming to exercise to you name it. It's just phenomenal. And if we don't want to give Prairie Sound an area the opportunity to get with the future, be a little more progressive, try to grow the community like some of our neighbors, like Ravenhurst just did a brand new Y. They're hoping to get rid of COVID so they can get working on it seriously over there. Huntsville, Bracebridge have big rec centers. I guess we're just going to sit idle and live in our little island over here. So anyway, countering Councillor Lamb's challenge to get rid of it, I think I'm very much in favor of leaving that resolution exactly the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Am I able to respond to that or no?
Well,
Well, I mean,
I think,
oh, forget it. I forget
yeah,
it. I'll rest on what I say, and
Yeah.
and people can make their own judgment.
I have some remarks which I cut short on Thursday night about one particular thing that I want to point out that is particularly germane to this discussion. So I'll try to do it quickly, but what I think people need to realize is that there is, there is there is, of course, the ask that was made of us, which was deliberately created as our starting point. And there have been other proposals ranging from let's do nothing, which we rejected on Thursday, to let's do something very minimal. The idea that we would contribute as a contribution $50,000 and subsidize some people or some people's memberships or pay a small amount of money. What you need to understand, I think, is that there is ultimately a decision as to whether Whitestone is part of this or not, and whether we are considered to be, pulling our weight or not with respect to West Perry Sound. And I was starting to talk about the risks associated with various decisions that we might make on Thursday. There is a risk to us saying we're not going to participate, or we're not going to participate in a meaningful way. And everybody needs to understand what that risk is. First of all, it puts at risk the relationship that we have with our neighbors in West Perry Sound, who clearly, I'm not going to argue, they benefit because they're closer to Perry Sound. They benefit more from this project than we do. I don't think that's in dispute. They are more highly committed to it. In fact, as we noted earlier, several of them did what I refer to as writing blank checks to the in terms of the resolutions that their councils passed. Because that's an expression of their commitment. We are, however, at the moment, a respected part of West Perry Sound, and we share many services because we're all relatively small communities in terms of dollars and people, and we can't do things on our own. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on in various areas, operational and planning and otherwise. And that collaboration has been recognized by the government, by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in particular. We get kudos for doing that. So what's the risk? The risk is that if we essentially walk away, or we do something that is simply a token response, I very much anticipate the message that I will get back from my colleagues in the West Perry Sound Heads of Council is, hey, if that's all you're going to do, keep your money. You're going to need it, because we are going to end up isolating ourselves from the rest of West Parry Sound. And there will be consequences, in my opinion, for the ratepayers of Whitestone going forward if we do that. There will be other costs. Yeah, we could save the costs. We could save all of the costs associated with this pool, but that's not in my view, that is not something that I think is a prudent measure. So I mean, in the back of my mind, there is there's a kind of a materiality condition to this. If we're going to make a contribution, as we said we were, I think it really has to be a material contribution, not something that is just a token in passing. The second risk associated with it has to do with our provincial government, who have gone to bat for us over this project, big time, whether you realize it or not. And those provincial politicians who went to bat for us do not like to be embarrassed, and they are not going to respond positively to that, I can assure you. Again, if we do something that is not substantive, and so what will happen? Well, as you all know, we are heavily dependent on the higher levels of government for funding for major infrastructure projects that we want to undertake. And we are out there asking them for additional support for expansion of the nursing station. We're asking them to do something about broadband, which we cannot afford to do anything about on our own. Nothing. So it's not within our means to do it. The higher levels of government are going to have to pay the bill on them, have to pay the freight on this. And if we walk away from the money that the $27+ million plus that they have offered for this particular project, I expect the well to dry up, number one, and it could even be worse than that. As I say, if it appears that the cohesion amongst the West Parry Sound municipalities and the degree of cooperation that many of us have argued for a long time exists, and is a reason to leave us the way they are, we could end up with an upper tier municipality in Parry Sound District. And if you're concerned about the cost, if you're concerned about your taxes, as I am, I don't like to pay taxes any more than anybody else. And I can look back on the days when where I am was in an unorganized township, and we had virtually no government to deal with in local government, and we had virtually nothing to pay in taxes. So, I understand why some people kind of long for the way things were, but that's not 2021. And the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, if you read the Municipal Act, has the power to say, guess what? Without consultation, by the way, there will be an upper tier municipality in Parry Sound District. And if that were to happen, anything that we would ever pay towards this pool facility would be dwarfed to pay for the governance and bureaucracy of that upper layer without us getting one additional iota in new services, and without us having one bit of say in it, because we would have one representative on that upper tier council out of probably 10 because of our population relative to the bigger municipalities. So folks, I am concerned that we not send a message that says, hey, we in West Parry Sound we love our splendid isolation here. We're okay we're fine on our own. Just leave us alone. I simply do not think that that's a good approach for this council to take, we could live to regret it for a long time. And so that's why I am convinced, and I hear what ratepayers are saying. We don't want this. We don't need it. Why should we spend money on it? I get that. I totally get that. It's a natural reaction for people. And probably, 20 years ago when we were in restructuring, I would have made exactly the same, or in fact, I did make the same argument at the Ontario Municipal Board as a rank and file ratepayer. But I got to tell you, I don't think this is in our best interest to be making such an argument. And so what I think we should be doing is we should be entertaining. If you feel that the numbers are too high, make an amendment to them and test it. But to turn around and say, well, we really don't want to be part of it, that's a given, that we're saying to everybody else, hey, we'll give you a donation, but we don't want to be part of this. And I think sending that message would be it would be seriously at our peril to do that. So I'll stop. You understand what my point of view is and why I am supporting us carrying forward with something that is substantive. If
Mr. Mayor?
someone wishes to amend the motions that are on the floor, let's get on with it, because we're
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
You say
Sorry,
that.
Councillor Lambs was first, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said first, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry. I just have to comment that, in my opinion, $250,000 is substantive. Okay, and I couldn't disagree with you more in terms of amalgamation. That's scary kind of stuff that people put forward. This is, as I said last week, this is amalgamation. We get one vote out of 12. Thanks. That is amalgamation. Let's not fall into that. I talked to Norm Miller, and Norm Miller told me that it's up to us to negotiate what we want. And that's what we're doing right here. That's what we're trying to put forward. And as far as I heard Councillor Gorham Matthews, I'm okay with the 250, okay? And all that we're talking about is the difference, of 18 or 5 or, whatever. And I think we've got perhaps a motion that we can all be okay with. But of course, I understand that you're not for that, and Councillor McEwen isn't for it. But, I think it's a livable thing for our community, and our community does not want to join a joint services agreement. We do not want to do it, and I don't think we should. And I think Councillor Gorham Matthews agrees with that. So I think we're getting very close. So anyway, I'm sorry, Councillor Woods, if I interrupted you.
No problem. No problem. Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead.
Beth said, the 50% thing. We not, or don't think, this could come to an agreement here real quick and easy. If we're talking about 50 cents, send them 50% of their tell, because it's not an ask as far as I'm concerned, and you're never going to change my mind on that one. And as far as the operating expenses, $10,000 a year, would that keep anybody happy? That's still, I think it's a lot of money to us out here in Whitestone. It really is. And this way, if we can at least get past this, vote this in, we can at least start rebuilding our community again and the ties that have been broken over this pool issue. Councillor McEwen, Joe, I love you, man. I do, but you keep bringing up this.
No, come on.
Listen, Mr. Mayor, I'm not being disrespectful, and I just want to say something because he acknowledged it. If you think I'm disrespectful, by all means, throw me off the call. I will not get angry about it. But it keeps coming up, cottager versus local, okay? This has nothing to do with it, okay? I'm sick and tired of hearing cottager versus local. We're all taxpayers. We're all supposed to be on the same team. We're neighbors, we're friends, regardless of where we came from originally. When we're here on the day, we're all people of Whitestone, and we should be working together, not fighting each other, not causing fights on social media, and not marginalizing people and putting them in a box. Oh, you're a local, or oh, you're a cottager. That's not right. We're all supposed to work together here.
Here,
That's
here,
what I wanna do.
here, here. That's it. I'm supporting, I'm supporting your comments, Councillor Woods. But look, I need someone, and I don't know if Councillor Gorham Matthews, since you started us down this road, if you want to do it, but I'm trying to capture the suggestions that people have here and see if we can get some. But I need you to actually make an amendment to the motion so we can test it and see if folks are happy with it. Let's just start with item number one.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, the other option is for us to vote on what's before us. You and Councillor McEwen want to go for the 527 and whatever, as far as I can determine. Let's vote on it, hopefully turn it down, and then I will introduce a motion as I've read out, and we can debate it. I think we're pretty close in terms of getting some consensus on council, and we can go forward and finish it off. We're really close.
Okay, I'm
But you
sorry,
wanna
but
continue-
we're
You
not.
can hold it. I have the floor. You want to carry on with the motion that's there and somehow do hokey pokey to it, whatever. It's got all kinds of stuff in there that I don't think that we want, like the joint services agreement. Let's vote on what's in front of us now and then move on.
We
And
can take
hopefully
the joint.
resolve this thing.
We can take the joint services board out. If we start with what you read, we will be here all night putting back the pieces that we need. There is a whole lot more in this than there is in what you mentioned, and this can be modified easily with the notes that I made. So I'm looking for an amendment. If there isn't any amendment, then we'll have to take a vote. But
I'll make an amendment. I think it should be $250,000 towards capital, capped at that, just as you said.
Yeah.
$10,000 annually for a donation towards the operating deficit, capped.
Well, sorry, just hang on. Just do it one at a time, please, so that we can get.
That's what I was trying to do.
No, I want to test your amendment. Is there a seconder for the amendment to change 527,040 to $250,000?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews. All right, so I'm gonna make some notes here that I can use. Okay, so Joanne, seconded by. Is there any further discussion about that amendment? All right, let's call the roll, Madam Clerk, and we'll see who's in favor quickly. We'll just do it like a straw vote here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen, you're on mute, Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen, are you?
Sorry, no.
Thank you. Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie,
I'll say yes. All right. Item number 2, let's move on to that one. This was the question of what is our contribution towards the operating deficit. And it's an annual contribution.
I would suggest
for 10 years.
$10,000.
I think we should stick with the 18. I think it's a reasonable amount to invest in recreation for the community. And I don't think 18 will hurt our overall budget each year.
I concur, Counselor. Thank you.
Do you have an opinion, Councillor Woods?
Me personally, I would go with 10,000, but I mean, it's up at the will of the group here.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's put the motion in the form that it is in, and with the 18,316, and as I read it to you and as it's in front of you. Let me know if you need to me to read it again, but I think you can all see it. Can we call the question on 2 as it's written, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, you know what? Never mind. Let's just do a straw vote. We're fine. We'll go ahead. Carry on. Councillor Gore Matthews. You said yes?
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
No.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
No.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes. All right. So that's number 2. Number 3, we have these commitments be contingent.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
There are other revisions that will be asked for in this. Are you going to entertain them later? After we go through a couple of the front end?
Well, I think I will. I'm just trying to get the pieces. So let me read you what I have. Okay. In number 3, there are these are the conditions. Receipt of the full amount of, this is A, receipt of the full amount of the requested Isip funding towards construction of the proposed. Can I ask, does anybody disagree with that? Are you okay with that being a condition? All right, I'm not hearing anybody saying that that's wrong. Number B was execution of an agreement acceptable to council between the municipality and the proposed Joint Services Board, which would address concerns about equitable representation of all participating municipalities in decision making. Now, I've heard 2 things. I mean, that, as far as I'm concerned, that says we have work to do on the agreement with the Municipal Services Board, and until we get something that is acceptable to us, which addresses the the weighted voting issue and so on, that we wouldn't sign it. So, but I hear other people saying we don't wish to be part of the Joint Services Board. So I guess the question is, where are we on this?
I suggest we do not be part of and I think this is critical, that we do not be part of the Joint Services Agreement, and we do not form part of that. That's what I think.
All right. So you're moving.
Mayor, can I comment on that?
Well, let him make him move it as an amendment to condition 3B.
Kangaroo court.
Is there a seconder for that?
Kangaroo court, please, Mr. Mayor.
I'll
Come
second
on.
that. And Mr. Mayor, could you please remind Councillor McEwen to not say things like that out of turn? As per our procedural bylaw, he should be asked to leave the meeting.
Okay, I will insist that everybody mute your phone when you're not speaking, please. Please do not talk over top of anybody else.
Do you think that was appropriate, Mr. Mayor?
I don't know.
Kangaroo court.
Well, I don't think it's a kangaroo court, but it's not proper decorum. Okay, so a motion has been moved, or an amendment has been moved, that we not be part. I'll word it. The municipality does not. Sorry, I got to make a note here. The municipality will not, if this passes, will not be part of the Joint Services Board. Okay, so,
Could I comment, Mr. Mayor?
yes, go ahead, please. You may comment.
I disagree with taking it out at this point in time. I think by the time it goes through other municipalities and they ask for changes and such, I see the Joint Municipal Service Board as being a possible viable need at some point in time if we're going to be part of this operation. If we're jumping out totally, I guess that's one thing, which we haven't done at this point. We've voted ourselves into it in some format. So at this point in time, I would suggest that we leave the Joint Municipal Service Board as part of the operation or the agreement for future considerations.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments about this particular issue of the Services Board?
Mr. Mayor,
So-
Councillor Woods.
Go ahead, Councilor Woods.
But I think everybody knows how I feel on this one. I think it would be in our ratepayers' best interest not to take a seat at that table. I mean, we're contributing a decent sum of money. Some might think not, but I think they should be happy with what we're giving them of our taxpayers' funds. But I don't think we should have a seat at that table. I think that's going to put us in a bad position moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Madam CAO Clerk, can you just call the question on whether or not you support us not participating in the Joint Services Board?
Councillor Gore Matthews,
No.
Councillor Lamb,
Well, okay, I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting on. Are we voting on that we will or will not be part of the joint services agreement?
If I were doing this properly, Councillor Lamb, it would be the positive motion instead of the negative one, but I already captured the negative one that you made as an amendment. So this amendment carries. This will be the motion. So we are the proposal that we're voting in favor of or against is the proposal that we not join the Municipal Services Board.
I do not want to join the municipal board. So is that a no?
That's a yes.
Oh,
Councillor Gorham Matthews said no. I'm sorry.
I voted wrong then because I misunderstood the question.
Okay,
that's
so
why I wanted to
thought
ask.
you were
all right. Do you
I
want
thought it
to?
was a yes or no question.
You know what? I'm sorry. This is my fault.
confusing.
Let's go back. Do you want to be part of the Municipal Services Board? Yes or no? Councillor Gorham Matthews,
No.
you do not want to be part of it. I'm sorry, I'm just going to make a little note here. Part of it. Okay, Councillor Joe Lamb said he did not want to be part of it.
No is my answer.
So we got 2 no's so far. Councillor McEwen.
I'd say no with mixed feelings on the whole thing.
All right. Brian Woods.
No.
Well, I'm going to say yes, but just it's the decision. It seems to me is that we not be part of the Joint Services Board. Let's go to the next one. A review of the operating model, projected operating costs. I'm sorry, a view of the operating model, comma, projected operating costs and reserve requirements for the facility by management consultants with expertise in such reviews to be completed prior to final design. Does anybody have a problem with that as a condition?
I do.
Okay.
I think that the management consultant review should not include the current architectural firm or the YMCA.
So they're
It's
not
gotta be
management.
independent.
That's
In
why
the-
it says management consultants, Councillor Lamb. They are not management consultants. They
But-
would
but
not
I
be
thought-
conducting the review.
I thought that for months now, we've been hearing that it's been punted over to those two people or those two groups to give, compare Gravenhurst, et cetera. So as long as they're not involved in it, I'm okay with this. But if they are, I'm not okay with it.
Well, yeah, I would simply clarify by saying they are architectural consultants, design consultants. They are not management consultants. They are not the kind of people who do what we're asking to be done. So,
Okay, I'm okay with it then.
so that's, I want to be very clear about that. I'm not relying on them for their opinions, the current architectural consultants for their opinions on this. All right, so does anyone else with that explanation, does anyone else have a concern about C? Let's go to D. It said, D was that all other municipalities agree to participate financially in the project. Is there anybody who has a problem with that?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, is D on the resolution? I can't see the bottom of the
Well,
resolution.
it isn't because I'm going to read you the final resolution when the whole thing is finished. I'm going to go back and read it to you again as amended.
What is D again? Sorry.
It is all other municipalities agree to participate financially in the project.
I will move that one.
I'm sorry, I could, if you want, I mean, I guess, what time are we at? We're at 9 o'clock. I mean, I can, it would take me about 5 minutes. I can edit you a clean version of this and put it up. Would you like to see it? Would you like to see the one would you want to take the time to have it in front of you?
Well, I think we need to go through the whole thing before you can do that.
Well, but what else is there that's all there is? There's nothing more than what we've talked
Okay,
about.
respectfully, Mr. Mayor, I'd say therefore be it resolved that number one, the municipality of Whitestone agrees to contribute 6.1% of the difference between the total construction cost of the facility and the sum of the Isip funding and any capital contribution through fundraising to a maximum total of, so we're not going for 6.1%. Need to take that out. And we need to say it's 250,000 one-time contribution, right? That needs to be amended. Secondly, under 2, the municipality of Whitestone further agrees to contribute annually towards any operating deficit of the facility, maximum of 18,316, commencing in the first year and contributing for 10 years thereafter, with the maximum amount being increased annually. Okay, well, we can discuss that one a little more if we want to. That's okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I comment? Would it not be appropriate under our bylaw to have taken this bylaw, or pardon me, this resolution off the floor with the consent of the first and second person moving it, and then proceed with an additional one when it was defeated? This sure seems like a very backward way of doing business here.
No, these are actually amendments that have been moved to the motion. So the motion that is on the screen in front of you is being replaced as we speak.
I see that.
And I want to be very clear, but we're almost like unless folks have other things about this that haven't come up in the discussion so far, I think I have captured what they are, what these changes are. So let me see if I can, what I'm going to do. I'm going to, how would you like to take about a 2-minute recess? And I'll just give me a minute while I modify what's on the screen in front of you. And Madam CAO, am I still in the meeting?
Yes, you
I
are,
can see
Mr.
you.
Mayor. Yes.
For some reason or other, I have lost my meeting controls off the screen. I don't know what's going on, but
No, you're still there?
I've got a,
We can see you
you are
live.
streaming. Okay, stop screen sharing. Okay, that's what the problem is. Now I'm going to share the revised screen. All right, now what you should see, sorry everybody for that bit of delay there, but what you should see is you should see the revised version of what was in front of us a minute ago. And if I could just get it to go back to the top, there we are. Everybody see that now? And you should see that there are some yellow highlights, which are the things that I just changed. So that is the motion as we have it right at the moment.
Mr. Mayor, should we
Go ahead.
remove the 6.1 out of number 1 because we're not doing 6.1 anymore?
We could. Is that the wish of the group to get rid of the 6.1 so that we just say
thinking that it's not.
It's just a flat 250 grand is what we're contributing, and that's it, right?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So agrees to contribute. And so what I can do is I can remove the, well, here we go again. So all I will say when I'm finished is the municipality of Whitestone agrees to contribute a maximum total amount of $250,000 as a one-time contribution. That's all it needs to say, right? Agree with that? I'm going to go back and edit it now. All right. All right. Now let's go back to. There we are. How's that? Did I address your concern, Councillor Gorham Matthews?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Are there any other issues that people want to raise about what's on the screen?
Councillor Woods, Mr. Mayor, I
Yeah.
can't see what's on the screen. That's all. So you're gonna have to read it for me at some point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, I will read it to you one more time. That's a good.
Mr. Mayor, before you read it, can I make one comment?
Go ahead.
I know the motion's been changed significantly. Just thinking in line with what McKellar did on number 1, they've asked that the percentage be revisited and lowered. That would have been a more reasonable solution in my mind if we ended up with, say, 4 or 5% instead of 2.5 or whatever the heck we're at now. So just a comment.
Well, our yeah, I was going to say our percentage is lower at this rate is probably lower than that. That's somewhere around 3%, but that was the number that was put forward and agreed to as an amendment. So
Comment.
I don't know what I don't know what else to say. I guess we're
Agreed to.
That's what we came with. That's what we came up with. Okay, so
Mr. Mayor, number 2.
Yeah.
I spent most of my life negotiating collective agreements, so I'm going to give a whack at this one. Beth, I have a hard time, grabbing the 18,316, but I will in order to get this thing passed. But can we please at least change this to say that it's for 5 years and reviewable at that time? Another council 5 years down the road can look at the 18,000 and make any decision they want with respect to it. Maybe increase it for all we know, but let's have a review 5 years out, not 10 years out. I think that's a subtle little point, but they could also say we're not going to give any more after 5 years. I don't know what the council will be of the day, but I would like to see it 5 years and reviewed at that time or something to that effect. Thank you.
Well, all right. Are you going to make that an amendment?
Yes, I will.
I'm going to test it. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that. Councillor Woods.
So, all right, let's go down the list. Well, any comments first?
Just one comment. Wasn't that part of the agreement that everyone's signing, is that everyone's agreeing to participate for 10 years?
Well, but if we're not
If we're not
participating.
being part of the
We're
board,
not
it
signing
doesn't
it.
matter.
I mean, I still think that that was the expectation, that they would not have parties dropping out at different times. And I think the 10 years is probably okay in everybody else's mind. But anyway, let's test the motion. Madam CL Clerk.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
No,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
No.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
No. Okay, so that amendment is defeated and it will stay at 10 years. All right, so the motion, anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was sort of a sigh, but I'll give it to you. I think we should be putting in that this is our contribution and that we will not be making any contributions to reserves, as we mentioned earlier. I don't want to start getting a bill for $18,000 or $20,000 in reserves. So I think we need to make it clear that we will not be participating in any reserves as an addition, just so it's clear, and we're not later being billed for it somehow. And I guess you could say, well, if we don't join the agreement, we won't be part of it. But I would just like for clarification that in the motion somewhere. I think it protects us. Thank you.
So why would we be asking them to review the operating model, projected operating costs and reserve requirements? I guess is my question.
Well, again, I don't, we said we're giving 250 and we're going to give 18, but I don't want to get another bill for 18. That isn't, we need to say we're not, if the deal is 250, 18 plus another 18, because they decide, or whatever that is, 20 or 22, I don't want that bill. I don't think the citizens want that bill. I think we need to put in, they can review it all they want, but I don't think that we should be contributing to the reserves.
But is that the only thing that you're trying to protect against? I mean, it's what you really want to say? We don't, one and two, items 1 and 2 are the full extent of our commitment. Is that what you really want to say?
That's what I'm saying. Yes. So however you word it, that's our commitment.
All right. Well, to save time, would you stipulate that, would you agree to stipulate that part, we will add a part E, which says, I'm writing it on my own copy here, but just items 1 and 2.
Mr. Mayor, can I comment on that?
Go ahead.
I don't see us taking out the reserve aspect of this operation. The contributing part, the annual operating fee that's paid by everyone, which we're in for 6.1% so far. There will be reserves and money taken from that, as I understand it, and a certain percentage put away for reserves. So we will be contributing to reserves just in our 18,316. I don't see the reserves being over the top.
No, I don't either, and that's why I suggested that the way we address this is to add an item E, a condition E, that says items 1 and 2 above are the full extent of Whitestone's financial commitments.
That's correct.
Because that really, it's not that we don't want to pay anything towards reserves. We just don't want to get another bill over and above what we've already said we're going to do.
Right.
That's my understanding. Can we live with that, everybody? Anybody have a serious objection to that? All right. So I'm going to read the motion the way I have it one more time for benefit of Councillor Woods. Whereas council considers a public pool and wellness center to be an important amenity for the economic and social well-being of residents of West Parry Sound, including residents of Whitestone, and whereas council recognizes that Whitestone residents are the furthest distance from the proposed pool and wellness center and may therefore be less likely to use the facility than other West Parry Sound residents, and whereas the municipality of Whitestone has the smallest population and lowest tax base of the 7 West Parry Sound municipalities, therefore be it resolved that 1, the municipality of Whitestone agrees to contribute to the capital cost of the project the amount of $250,000 as a one-time contribution, and 2, the municipality of Whitestone further agrees to contribute annually towards any operating deficit of the facility a maximum amount of $18,316, commencing in the first year of the facility's operation and continuing for 10 years thereafter, with the maximum amount to be increased annually by the Consumer Price Index. 3, these commitments be contingent upon A, receipt of the full amount of the requested Isip funding towards construction of the proposed West Parry Sound Pool and Wellness Center, and B, the municipality declines to participate in the proposed Joint Municipal Service Board, and C, a review of the operating model, projected operating costs, and reserve requirements for the facility by management consultants with expertise in such reviews to be completed prior to final design. D, there should be an and there, but anyway, D, all other West Parry Sound municipalities agree to participate financially in the project. And finally, E, items 1 and 2 above are the full extent of Whitestone's financial commitments to the project. So, can I call the question, or can I ask the clerk to call the question?
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor,
Council.
could I ask whose name is on this as mover first and second? Is it Councillor Lamb and Gorham Matthews?
Councilors McEwen and Gorham Matthews were the movers of the original motion. It was amended by a series of motions.
That's my point. Whose name is on there as moving this motion?
Well, if you would like another mover or seconder, we could ask for one.
I would like so. Thank you.
Will someone move? Councillor Gorham Matthews, are you still prepared to move the motion?
Yes.
Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second Councilor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. All right, so I have changed the motion as the mover and seconder of the motion as amended. Madam CAO, can you call the
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
No.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie,
yes?
that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, given that we met previously, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute and get us back to. I think the first thing that we have to do here is we have to do a curfew motion because we already had met for, I don't know, 45 minutes or something prior to starting this meeting. So we have yeah, we were 9 o'clock probably, approximately we should have gone. Am I right, Madam Clerk? Anyway.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but we're.
All right. So can I get a motion to extend for another half hour, please?
I'll make the motion, Counselor Lamb, but what's it, to go till 9:30?
Well, I think we have to go longer than that. I don't know. Are we, what we're essentially doing is going through or trying to go through our budget items and cover off the things. I don't know. I think we're probably about, we probably have another half hour maybe to go if we want, but I don't know if that's enough. What do you think?
Let's give her a try.
All right.
Good start.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. So Councillor Lamb moved curfew extension. Who was the seconder?
I'll move.
I'll
I'll
second.
second it.
Was that Councillor McEwen? Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm assuming there's no objection to that. All right. So now we do move into the committee of the whole because we don't have a motion on the floor. So I need that motion at 9:24. Committee of the whole, please.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by.
I'll second it, Counselor Lamb.
Thank you. Once again, I'm assuming there is no objection if I hear none. All right, thank you. We're in committee of the whole. And that gives us an opportunity to put some, I believe, some slides up that our treasurer or our hosts are going to share with us. Am I right?
Yes, I'll be sharing that shortly.
Madam Treasurer, do you want to start highlighting things, or do you want to have this screen up first? Can you go ahead?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor and council and staff. Sorry, I was just eating.
What, breakfast?
Yeah, I know. Just, yeah. So I was just going to make this brief, but based on from our last discussion with the budget, there have been some changes, but I just wanted to update where we stood after our last discussion. So page 5 of 24, this is where we stand with our revenues, expenses, capital, reserve, and annual debt repayment limits. I don't know if that's up on your screen right now, but things have changed. So I just wanted to sort of recap where we stand since our last discussion and then go over what changes have happened since then. There's capital, there's no change to the number currently. Page 6 of 24, page 7 of 24, currently in process.
Sorry, Treasurer Allen.
Yeah.
Can you give me the number on your PowerPoint? Is that where you're working off of right now?
Yes, so I'm actually on page 4.
Page
So the
4.
first
Okay.
is
Thank you.
first is just a header. Page 2 is where we stood. Page 2 is where we were based on our last discussion, based on our last meeting. Page 3 is the capital recap. I was going to flip to page 4. Currently in process.
Yes, we're on page 4. Thank you.
Okay, so the 2020 audit, I've actually been in touch with the auditors today. They have finished. They will be presenting a draft financial statement for review very shortly. So we will be anticipating a presentation of our financial statements very soon. Asset management plans. We are working with an outside consultant. Our reporting deadlines have actually moved to 2022 for the core assets. That's been a regulation change, but I was going to suggest that we keep moving forward, working with the consultants to meet our 2021 targets. We have 2 property tax sales in process right now. The information is posted on our website. We potentially have 2 more this year. We have a refund from Belvedere Heights to the tune of $42,840. We were waiting for direction from NPAC on their reevaluation. We just heard last week that they canceled it once again. So there's nothing happening in 2021, and there's nothing happening in 2022 as well. We just received information from the government that we are getting an additional gas tax refund to the tune of $55,855.
Extra?
Yes, on top of our $58,000. So we're getting $113,000 now from gas tax revenue.
Thank you.
If I move to slide 5, this is the comparable residential tax rates before education. So we are still in a very low tax bracket. The Whitestone proposed tax rate is still the same as 2020. There's been no changes there. If I move on to slide 6, discussion items. Recommended tax increase, nursing station expansion, municipal office renovation, additional maintenance for gravel.
Excuse me, Pat, my numbers don't seem to jive with yours. That is page what?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What page number are you on? Sorry.
It's page 9 of 24 or slide 6.
Okay, thank you.
These are just the additional items for discussion. But what I wanted to do.
Are we talking about these at this point or later or what?
I actually wanted to bring to point right now. So there's been a few different since we last discussed. There have been some announcements. So I wanted to give you the final numbers in revenue. So we have additional gas tax of $55,855. Belvedere Home refund of $42,840. We have an additional $5,000 coming in from the Cannabis Legalization Implementation Fund. So I wanted to bring these changes to, we have a current operating and capital surplus of $50,376. So these are running all the recent changes through the budget. I've just been in touch with the auditors. They have released our 2020 audit surplus number, which is $161,504 surplus. So that brings us to a total of $211,881. So this is positive revenue over expenses. So what I wanted to talk about was if we whittle away this additional surplus, we have some changes to expenses, we have some changes to capital, but then we can talk about any additional revenue funding that we may need to make, if that's okay with everybody.
Excuse me, what is the amount we're looking at in total there, Pat?
So right now we have a surplus of $211,881.
Excuse me, prior to that, you mentioned 161,000.
That's the surplus from our 2020 audit.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do is discuss any changes to expenses, any changes to capital that will whittle away this surplus, and then we can deal with any deficit that we're still facing.
Is it time for, can I say a few things or no?
Sure.
Councillor Lamb. So, the surplus of 200 or 161,000 is a slippery slope. If you use that just to offset taxes this year, Of course, what happens is if you don't run that same surplus next year and you spend the same amount, you're going to have to come up with that 161,000. So I hear you when you say, you know, how can we use that 161,000? But it's got to go, in my opinion, to capital things, not to operating things. It's a very dangerous thing to start funding your surpluses by operating surpluses to start funding your operating budget.
Yeah.
So quickly, I'm all for putting $80,000 extra in gravel. I think people have heard me talk about that. So for us to put an extra 80,000, and what it says in the memo is that, you know, they're going to come up with a plan for even more, you know, into the future. So I'm really glad to see that that's being addressed somewhat. Someone brought the idea up about sidewalks in town in Dunchurch, and I forwarded it to the CAO, and the road superintendent, you know, came up with a cost, and I'm all for putting sidewalks both sides of Dunchurch. I really like that idea. Obviously, the nurses station we have to go ahead with. If we can afford to take some of that 161,000 and put it in a reserve towards the nurses station, I'm all for that. In terms of the office renovation of $730,000, I'm against that. I was around on council 10 years ago when we built the office building, and you know, people are kind of crammed in there and whatever, but we've only got one more employee in that office that we didn't have 10 years ago. And, you know, to say that we're going to expand it by 1,000 square feet, pay 730,000, I don't think is good by me. And I don't think it'd be good by our taxpayers. COVID has changed everything. Everyone is working from home. There's other solutions that we have to come up with in order to accommodate one extra employee. And I know it's not quite as simple as that, but we need to come up. There are many, many, many people who are professional people who have never been in the office. Yesterday, I met the city manager from Burlington, and he has not been in the city hall for months. He's doing his work from home. We have to come up with job sharing ideas. We have to come up with office. We have to look at all alternatives within the community before we should be spending $730,000 on a renovation. I came up with some other ideas that I can't talk about now at a month or so ago, but we need to look at this in whole. So those are kind of my overall impressions of the budget for what it's worth. Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Okay, so Pat was going through, you know, through the budget. Are there, you had a few more slides, and then I want to come back with, I want to put another, an actual motion on the screen so that we can go and talk about the capital items that we want, so we can get approval of those. But I wanted to Pat to finish first, and then maybe we can go through them one at a time and see where we stand on them.
Sorry, I thought you asked for comments.
Madam, oh, no, well, no, that's fine. You covered a whole bunch of things, but we still have to go through and capture our approval of these things so that they end up in the budget that goes before the, you know, for final approval. So, Madam Treasurer, do you have more things you want to say?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was just trying to capture where we left off, the changes that have happened since then, and then some items to think about. So the items that have changed since we last spoke are those three items where we're getting a refund from Belvedere, we're getting additional gas tax funding, and we're getting another $5,000 for the Cannabis Legalization Implementation Fund. So what we have to think about is the capital and expenses. So the nursing station expansion, municipal office renovation, the additional maintenance for gravel, and the sidewalk installation. And then I just had a few economic indicators on the very last slide, slide 7, page 10 of 24. So I was trying to maybe go to expenses first, then to capital, see where we stand, and then think about any fundraising initiatives for the shortfall of revenue, if that's where we land up. So my first expenses conversation was going to be directed towards Dave Kresser. He was asking for additional, or thinking about some additional funding for gravel, which is currently at $91,800 for the budget,
Okay,
and possibly.
Sorry, before you get into that, can we put the actual resolution on the screen, Madam CAO, instead of the PowerPoint?
Yes, sorry, Mr. I'm gonna have to dig around and find that resolution. If you have it handy, I could share my screen with you again.
Okay, maybe that's what you should do. I'll find it. Hang on.
Yeah,
Let me
sorry,
go back here.
I prepared for this, but not the resolution. Let me make sure I can.
Okay, let me go back to
Okay, you should be.
resolutions are in. Oh, sorry. I know. I'll get it up here. There's motions. Okay, let's go to the one. All right, it'll just make it easier for us to do what we have to do. All right, this is the one we're on. Now, what I'm going to do is just show you a resolution. We're still in committee of the whole. We're not dealing with this resolution, but I'm going to show it to you so that we can just talk about it. Well, let's go back to the Zoom meeting and share screen. Where is it? There's motions, this one. All right. So if those of you can, those of you who can see the screen, these are motions that we would be asked to confirm or modify. So the first one that Pat was starting to talk about on the screen is the addition of $80,000 to the operating budget for gravel resurfacing. Councillor Nam has already commented on in support of this. Are there any other discussion about that one? Any concerns about that?
Mr. Mayor, it's part of the report from David, which I think is a good start, as Councillor Lam had alluded to. I support it. Thanks.
Yes, I mean, I guess we're being asked to, there are reports 9.2 and 9.3. All we're being asked to do is simply to receive them. So
Right.
I think if you have questions, assuming that you've read it, if you have questions about these, we can raise them as we go. So if there's nothing on that one, the proposal with respect to the sidewalk was to add $6,000 to the capital budget for engineering design and MTO approvals for sidewalk construction on Highway 124 in Dunchurch. You can appreciate that, and by the way, I was very impressed at how quickly this got turned around from the time that we received this suggestion, which actually came from Ed Can, the one that I saw anyway. But this is not a simple thing. There would have to be a bunch of design work done and approvals from MTO. So the actual construction is unlikely, I would say, to happen in 2021. And you notice that there is a total cost suggested for the sidewalk, depending on whether it's on the north side or the south side of Highway 124, or both, I suppose. But this is simply to get things going this year so that in 2022, we would be able to construct it. Or at least make a decision whether or not to construct it, or are there any comments on that one?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment on that one if I could. I was actually involved in a possible sidewalk extension in Dunchurch once upon a time. And the big problem there, the concern they had was that school kids were walking up the street after school and to school with no sidewalks. When the highway was redesigned and rebuilt the last time, they put like 8-foot side extensions on the sides of the road through Dunchurch. So in essence, there is a widened walkway is all I'm trying to say, but it's really not as protected and secure for people walking up the side of the road as a sidewalk would be. I think what Mr. Can was kind of alluding to also, I could be wrong, but during large events like the Fall Fair, when we have cars on both sides up through the whole village, then people invariably are walking between cars, and there's no proper sidewalk external on either side to be able to bring your children and your family up the sidewalk per se. So, so I certainly support this as an initiative to investigate. Interesting to see where the highways are with us on that. If they're looking at widening the highway for a sidewalk, it'll be interesting, but certainly a real plus for Dunchurch if we could get a sidewalk up at least one side of the street like we have up on the other end beyond the community center. So anyway, just comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the sidewalk?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would love, even if we got the one side done that runs between the library and the school, because the school quite often, well, before COVID, you know, we had a great partnership between the school and the library where the classrooms would walk down to the library and do activities with Lori. And, you know, the teacher was always waving down cars because the kids are basically walking down the side of the road in that stretch. So even if we can do that one side, it'd be really great. And I know a lot of parents would probably feel a lot more comfortable with their kids walking to school. We don't see a lot of kids walking to school, probably for this very reason that there is that stretch. So even if we get that one side done, that keeps them on the side of the school and the library, that would be a terrific asset.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Anything else about this one? Okay, the next one, the suggestion actually is to add $20,000 to the current year capital budget to finalize design and engineering matters in respect of the nurse practitioner-led clinic, which is the official name of the nursing station expansion project. So I know the suggestion was made that if you put in reserve, but in fact, if we're planning to take it out in this year, which would likely be the case, then we'd have to go back to council and get it out of reserve, whereas this simply allows that work to go ahead as the time permits, with the view that the major construction would take place next year. So that's what that proposal is. Are there any comments about it?
Mr. Mayor, so this is actually to get the engineering work done this year. Is that what this is?
I'll ask the CAO clerk to comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's partly true. A good portion of the design work has been done. There hasn't been a good estimate of or a good assessment of the mechanical and the electrical, which needs to be done. And if we decide to go ahead, which sounds like we will, there will be the preparation of tender construction drawings with the tender early in January next year. So we want to get this done, October, November. I'd also like to let council know that we've applied for the Isip grant, which council is aware of. We've applied for an NOHFC grant, which is $500,000, and getting good positive response from NOHFC on that, because it's a regional facility. So as long as other municipalities are supporting it, financially, even if it's a small amount or by resolution, then we can apply for this regional funding. And then there's one more grant that we've applied for. It's called the Agri-Spirit grant, and that's $25,000. So that's been specified for the basement apartment for the visiting nurse practitioner. So we've got some 3 funding opportunities available to us. 2 of them I'm fairly confident on. And so the idea is to move this project forward, get everything ready to go to tender at the first of the year, first of next year, and then start building by the end of March or April, early April next year.
Mr. Mayor, on this project, and I'm certainly very, very supportive of the nurses station and all the staff is doing, I have some concerns that I've said in the past that I think that the hospital and others need to do, or someone needs to do a job to tell us what the services are that are coming to Whitestone and what their vision is, and sort of fill that out for us. I think that's fair. I also have the concern that we bumped this thing down from 1,500 to 1,000 square feet in terms of an addition, and not to put a monkey wrench in it, but I really, I don't want to run into the same thing we're now running into with the office, right? And so I don't know, is 1,300 the best result? I heard that meeting rooms or certain things were going to move downstairs in the basement, and I just wonder whether with handicap accessibility and those sorts of things, whether that's allowed, whether that's proper. I don't know the answers to that, but and again, I'm not trying to say that people don't know what they're doing. I'm sure they do, but I'd like the answers to those sorts of things. And short term, short term, we may think we're doing the right thing, but 10 years out, I'd hate to see us doing another renovation or addition or whatever. So those are my thoughts on it, and I 125%. I'm in support of this, and we should look to others to support us, which we've done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anything else about this particular project?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could, please.
Go ahead.
I know the 1,500 square foot flat ground scenario was floated, first of all, and the nursing station, through their committee, they went back to the committee and to the nurse practitioner and back to the West Greystown Health Center, and they revisited the whole design of the thing. And I think Councillor Lamb can rest pretty assured that it was basically their request and their suggestions that we go to this model that's being built with a full basement under more than 1,000 square feet. So in essence, they end up with the 2,000 square feet probably instead of 15. It gives an extra spacing and stuff, but it is downstairs. And the handicapping and the use of the downstairs, it was seriously considered in terms of functionality and what they could use it for. The group they're very excited about the possibility of this moving forward, of course, and especially in light of these new grants that have been sought out and they're being applied for. So I guess one of the next steps for them is to get confirmation of, say, we're putting 20,000 into it. It's definitely on the books, green light scenario, so they can proceed with further fundraising. They've got some schemes, and they've done a lot of work behind the scenes in preparation for being able to go to municipalities and or just grants and fundraising generally. The outreach is considerably, even out beyond Whitestone, of course, with Magnetawan and McKellar. but they're anxious to get going in that direction. I know that came up in earlier discussion tonight that pre-funding and fundraising, it's been a big part of doing projects. Like the library is a real good example of that. And this group already has like 110,000 or some such thing in a bank account in anticipation of building this particular expansion. So this will be really good news for them that presumably after this addition of $20,000, they can proceed to the next stage or the next phase of their fundraising. And just a last little comment. This is a phase on the nursing station. That's not to preclude that maybe in the future, it'll be hopefully easier than it is this time around because of getting in the ground and all kinds of things. But if there is a definite requirement, need, assessment done, then I guess that'll be hopefully like 10 years down the road or something, that they feel this is a good long-term move moving into what they're moving into now. So anyway, they're going to be pretty pleased. I anticipate to hear that we're moving forward with some funding into, I guess it's a budget line, if you will. I thought maybe reserve, but a budget line. So anyway, just some comments. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I need to respond to that, and thank you, Councillor McEwen. You know, I have a concern when you say, you know, it might be good for 10 years and then we might need something else. Short-term gain for long-term pain is not the way to go. And I'd rather them come up with a concept that we can build for more than 10 years out. And, you know, I have some concerns. What happens if a nurse practitioner happens to be handicapped, which is certainly a possibility, and can't get into a basement? We need to build for the future. We need to do it right. We know all our citizens support this initiative. So, and I had heard before that you had said, I think you said, but maybe someone else, well, man, we did that and it came out to $1 million or something. We certainly didn't want to spend that, so we cut it back. And those things concern me as a counselor and as a citizen. So those are the background between my comments. And again, I respect your work on this. We need to do it right. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, can we need to move on, folks. We're running out of time here quickly. I was looking through the rest of this page, and those seem to be the only 3 items that we're discussing. And I wanted to ask the CAO clerk to confirm that there aren't any other capital items that we need to talk about tonight. It's not that I just don't want to miss something and have to come back later.
Well, I talked on the office reno. I don't know that anyone else did.
Well, I guess partly that's why I'm thinking. I thought there was going to be something for the office reno in here. I believe we have to do something, and it was on the list. Originally.
I thought there was $730,000 on the list for it.
Yeah. So Madam CAO, can you explain to what has happened to this? And
yes, if I may, Mr. Mayor. So 2 things. So these are the 3 items that we're adding. So we're adding that are new, that council hasn't seen previously: the 80,000, the 6,000 for the sidewalk and construction. And by the way, David Creaser is on the line if anybody has any questions. And then the $20,000 to finalize the design. It wasn't in there initially because I was expecting the Isip grant, but it's unclear if we can use the Isip grant right away or if we actually have to start the project first. So I think this is a good decision to put some money in the budget to get that project moved to the next stage. So those are the 3 additions. The 700,000, it's not 730, it's 700 in the budget for the municipal office. It's 700 in the other. There's 700 for the municipal office, 5,000 for library path improvements, and 25,000 for the library water system. So those are 2 important components for the completion of the library that we need. That was already in the budget. So if council wishes to remove that, then that would be, in my mind, a different resolution. This resolution was intended to add these items that council had not previously addressed.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So, but just to clarify, there is no motion that I see on my order papers to approve the capital budget. And what you're telling me is that the other things that you just mentioned are actually in it already. Is that correct? But we're not approving, we're not having any discussion about them tonight. That's not the intention, or what?
So,
Well,
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
certainly,
it's Pat.
I know Pat would like to possibly wrap up the budget tonight so that we can bring some final numbers to our April 6th meeting, which is a week from today. So certainly, I know there's been some discussion about the office renovation. So if it's either in or out, it would be good to know tonight. This resolution is specifically for these 3 items, but there can be an addition that to this resolution if other things are added or subtracted.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, there's
go
some
ahead.
sensitivities obviously to the office renovations, and I don't know how that can be dealt with, and maybe some things can't be necessarily discussed in an open forum. And so I will tell you that I will not be supporting a budget that's got 700,000 in for office renovations until and if I get a whole lot more information on it, before I'll support it from my own standpoint. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before we move off that one, could I have a comment on please?
All right, go ahead.
Council was in support when we kind of commissioned at least the investigative part of the office expansion. And from what I understand, the plan that was brought forward, it meets different rules satisfying spacing for not just the staff, but the lunchroom and moving around the washroom from the roadside and a number of different things. There was some pretty good reasoning and justification for doing an office expansion. You know, Mr. Mayor, you and Councilor Woods, you were on a committee, and presumably it was justifiable that you would do that. Maybe you could comment on the viability of it. And if we don't go for, say, a full-blown expansion such at this time, maybe it's worth some further investigation into the feasibility, and maybe it can be a reduced model of some kind or something. But it sounded like there is a need to at least consider what we can do for that office complex in there. Could you or Mr. Woods maybe comment on that?
Well, I will simply comment in the interest of time that I believe that some expansion to the office is necessary. I was certainly concerned about how much it turned out costing, but when the estimates were done, but that's we tend to get surprises, unpleasant surprises like that these days. However, at this hour of the evening, I don't think that we're going to have sufficient time to have a discussion about it. So I would suggest to you respectfully that we're going to have to push this off onto, we do have a regular council meeting in a week's time, and I think we'll have to try and wrap this up. Keep in mind, the goal of the process is for council to work through the budget, decide what they want to be in the capital and operating budget, and then ultimately to approve that budget once we're satisfied with it as council. Then what we do is we schedule a public meeting at which we would actually approve it and have an opportunity to hear comments from people. So that's what we're trying to get to, and obviously the goal to do that is to do it by if possible by the end of April. But we have a meeting on April the 6th. We can, after Easter, we can come back and pick the rest of these up. What I will do, just for the sake of following with the package that we have, is I'll suggest that we close off this discussion. I'll entertain a motion to reconvene into a regular meeting. Then we will approve the addition of those 3 items that we discussed that everybody seems to be happy with, and then we'll wrap up, basically wrap up the meeting. I think that's what
we totally ran out of time here, because there were a couple items I just had a question on. But they're asking for kind of a wrap up so they could do something with this draft budget. One in particular is Whitestone Lake Road. When I look at the forecast here in 2021, I don't see any dollars in there. So I just wonder how we're going to proceed with Whitestone Lake Road. I see a slurry in 2022, which is coincident with Canning and Farley's roads, which is fine. But hopefully we have monies, and we're forecasted to complete Whitestone Lake Road after all we put those people through and promise them year after year after year. So I wonder if someone can comment on how we're going to handle that part of the budget.
Okay, David.
Mr. Mayor, there's $162,420 in Whitestone Lake Road for 2021.
Okay, it just doesn't show up in the.
Yeah, that would be on page 20 of 24, Councillor McEwen.
Okay.
So that's a 2021 draft capital budget. You might be looking at the 2020.
I'm looking at 2021 on page 21, third one down, but.
I'll look on page 20, Councillor McEwen.
Okay.
Just maybe 2/3 of the way down, it says Whitestone Lake Road.
Okay, it's just confusing that on page 21, there's a blank space under 2021 as capital budget. So not sure what the connection is there, but that's fine then if we're proceeding with that in 2021. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have a look at that. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that can't wait until the 6th?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, it's Pat.
Go
Can
ahead.
I just recap? So I've added 6,000 for the sidewalks. I've added 20,000 for the nursing station, 80,000 for gravel. I don't know if there should be something added to dust control. I've left 700,000 for the municipal office renovation. What's not in here is the 250,000 for the pool and wellness that we just discussed. So I should probably add that in.
No, that would not take place in 2021.
2021.
Unless you believe otherwise, Madam CIO, I don't believe there's any.
No, we should not be budgeting in
No.
2021.
No, I agree.
Okay.
We talked about that.
That
So
leaves
you don't have to. Now we're going to pass a
leaves-
motion on this in a second, Pat. But what you said is correct. What I believe is about to happen in a second.
Okay. So that leaves us with an operating and capital deficit of 55,624 if I run those numbers through, plus our surplus of 161,504. So we're sitting at a surplus of $105,881 at the end of these changes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. It'll
Mr. Mayor,
be amended one more time, I'm guessing, but yes.
just quickly, we're not depleting, but the reserves we have at the end of the year are less than we have at the first of the year. And unless we're going to pass if I heard this right, a 4% tax decrease, we better find responsibly monies to put it again away into reserves so that we're not, doing what we're doing. And I'm sure we'll come up to that conclusion on Monday night, hopefully. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We'll leave that for our staff. Can I get a motion, please, to reconvene into regular council?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by
I'll second it, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Okay, is anyone opposed to that motion? We're at 10:07 according to my clock. If I hear nothing, that's carried. So business arising or matters arising from the committee of the whole. I'd like a mover and seconder for this resolution that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives the memo and presentation regarding draft operating and capital budget for the year 2021 for information, and that Council of the Municipality of Whitestone confirms the following additional budget items to the capital program. First of all, addition of $80,000 to the operating budget for gravel restructuring. Addition of $6,000 for engineering, design, and MTO approvals for sidewalk construction on Highway 124 in Dunchurch. And third, addition of $20,000 to finalize design and engineering matters in respect of the nurse practitioner-led clinic expansion project. Did I get a mover and seconder for that, please?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing nothing, that should be very interesting. The numbers on my pages don't match, but hey, we won't worry about that. I am going to skip over items 9.2 and 9.3 with my apologies to David Creaser if he's still with us. I think these are information items that people have looked at and we have sort of discussed them, and I didn't hear any real questions about them. The only real item that we have left, I think, is questions from the public. And at this stage of the game, I hope we don't have any because we're way over curfew. But if there is anybody who, I hope you could save it. If you do have one, you could save it for the 6th. Anyway, I don't see or hear anything.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
I can. Oh, Ed, yes, yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I would like to say that the way this has been conducted has been very difficult the last few months for a lot of us, but I think it's been successfully completed at a reasonable base of compromise from both sides, and I'd just like to congratulate Council for the way they've handled it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ed, and thank you for your interest in the matter.
Okay.
We appreciate it. Anybody else?
This is Doug Hickey. I would like to reiterate what Ed just said. I think we've done some healing tonight with a very fair compromise. So thank you to Council.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Doug. Appreciate it. Anybody else? All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw.
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second it, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, thank you very much. Once again, I'll assume, unless I hear otherwise, that there is no objection to this motion. And the last one that I have is adjournment. Who would like to move that?
I will move.
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor McEwen, and I think I heard Councillor Woods, did I?
Sure did.
Very good. At 10:11 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody, for your hard work. I appreciate it. And you may vote in the affirmative with your by signing out of the session. And please enjoy the upcoming Easter weekend, and we'll catch up to you again on the 6th. Good night,
Take
everyone.
care, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
everyone.